Good morning. This is a public hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on Wednesday, October 28, 2020, in accordance with the provisions of the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 272. It's being broadcast live on Channel 18 and recorded for the archives. My name's Janet Williams, and as Chair of the Conservation Commission, I'm opening this hearing at 9:01 a.m. Today's hearing is being conducted by remote video conference pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency orders prohibiting the gathering of large groups of people. Every effort has been made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. The agenda and copies of documents for review today have been posted on the town website. A reminder that persons watching on Channel 18 who would like to participate in this meeting while it's in progress may do so by calling the phone number that's displayed on your screen. Note to all participants, please mute yourselves now and remain muted unless and until it is your turn to speak. If you're on the phone, please mute it by pressing *6 and unmute by pressing *6. In addition, if you are not speaking, can you please turn off your video cameras? That takes up too much bandwidth and causes some lags. When it is your turn and you wish to speak, I'll be taking comments and questions first from commissioners and then from others on the platform. If you wish to say something or ask a question, please just unmute yourself and say that you have something to say. All commission votes today will be by roll call, and so that we have a record of a quorum of the commission attending today, I'll now ask each commission member to indicate their presence on the call by stating their name. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Commissioner Kitts.
Kitts, present.
Commissioner Delvecchio.
Delvecchio, present.
Commissioner Clark.
Clark, present.
Commissioner Holmes.
Holmes, present.
Okay, we're all here. I'm here, so we have a full complement today. I have a couple of scheduling and agenda announcements to make. The first is a scheduling declaration. Since the start of the emergency period on March 10th, the Commission has scheduled applications for hearings in the order in which those applications have been received. I'm now exercising the authority conferred on me by Section 17B5 of the Act of 2020 as Chair of the Conservation Commission to declare that the following applications are being scheduled for hearing on the following dates. On December 16th, 2020, we have scheduled 448 Shore Road, 255 Sea Pine Road, and 155 and 157 Bridge Street. So those will be scheduled for hearing on December 16th. In addition, we had a couple of issues with our agenda for this week's hearing, and I want to correct those. 95 Skyway was erroneously left off the agenda, but it had been scheduled only to allow commission members time to review some materials that had been submitted late for the last hearing. So it'll be continued to the November 4th work session. And 203 Cross Street was erroneously added to today's agenda. It had actually been continued to November 18th. So those two aren't here. And I don't think aside from that, Callie, do we have any other requests for continuances?
We have one for Outermost Harbor Marine that's on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, okay. Let me take a deep breath before I try to read the caption of that. 83 Seagull Road, 30 Wikis Way, parcel N133, aka 0 to Squantum Road, 27, 59, 75, and 97 to Lippy Run, Seagull Enterprises LLC, USA Weather Station, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Quitnesset Associates Inc., New Milford Realty Corp., 59 to Lippy Run Trust, Chatham Sea Breeze LLC, and TR97 to Lippy Nominee Trust owners. All of that also known as the Outermost Harbor Marine application. The applicant has requested a continuance to November 18th. And I think that's it. Okay, Callie, if I haven't missed anything else, let's head to the top of the agenda.
Okay. The first item on the agenda is a request for a one-year extension, 45 Chatham Bars Ave, CBI 2045 Chatham Bars Ave Avenue LLC, SC 103195. Request for a one-year extension to install new drainage components, including a bioretention area and subsurface recharge basins, minor grading activities, landscape improvements, and paving. I recommend issuing the one-year extension for this project.
Okay, and as we've noticed, that the order of conditions had expired in August, but pursuant to the Act of 2020 that has waived all expiration dates, it is still valid. So we are able to approve the request for a one-year extension. Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve the request for a one-year extension?
Bob Rawls moved to extend for 1 year.
Kits, second.
A roll call vote to approve the request for a one-year extension for 45 Chatham Bars Avenue. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Kitts.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, so unanimously approved. Okay.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a field change request for 28 Eel River Road, Jeffrey Lines, SE 103402, field change request to move the location of the proposed kayak rack. I spoke with the representative for this project this week, and he expressed that he wanted to continue the project until November 18th. I told him we need a continuation request in writing. He did not submit one. So I guess my recommendation for this project, given the fact that the commission had some questions for the representative at the last hearing, since he's not on the call today, and he also verbally requested a continuance, I recommend continuing the project until November 18th.
Okay. I agree. I know we have some questions about the configuration and locations of the proposed kayak rack or racks. And I don't want to move forward on it until we have our questions addressed. So unless anybody else has a reason to deny this, I'll ask for a motion to continue this to November 18th.
Bob Rawls moved to continue to November 18th.
Kits, second.
Okay, roll call vote to continue 28 Eel River Road field change request to November 18th. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Kitts.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
Oh, and I vote aye as well, so unanimous. See that on November 18th.
Okay, the next item is a request for determination of applicability. 497 Orleans Road, Environmental Strategies and Management is the applicant. Eastward Company, Frost Fish Hill Nominee Trust is the owner. Proposed excavation and removal of old number 6 oil recovery system and wells, demolition of wooden structures housing RW-1, RW-2, and RW-3. Fill same wells and then smooth out the ground. Many other wells on site will be pulled up, cut, and filled at 497 Orleans Road, Assessor's Map 13I, Parcel 4. I know that Angela is representative, and I see her on the call today. Angela Boyd is here, and I see she's unmuted, so she's the representative for the project.
Okay, good morning, Ms. Boyd.
Good morning.
I think we have some questions. Is there anything that do you want to say before we start shooting questions your way to give us context?
Yes, I just want to be really clear. So RW1, RW2, and RW3 are the old recovery wells. Those are old steel wells, and we'll need to dig a little bit around those wells to remove them. However, those 3 wells are not within the resource area. They're not within the buffer zone for the river. So that is the only area where the actual excavation will be required. Now, there are some regular plastic monitoring wells which are within that buffer zone for the river, and those should come out of the ground fairly easily. We would like to use the excavator to do it, because typically what you do is hook something around the arm and just yank the wells straight up out of the ground. So since we'll have an excavator on site to do the work in the inner portion of the property at the recovery wells, we'd like to use those same tools to remove the monitoring wells in the buffer zone. However, the work that's actually being done within the buffer zone is very non-intrusive and won't really require digging or brush removal or any sort of major disturbance.
Okay. And I noticed on the site map that you submitted that the buffer zones to the wetland are showed, but isn't it the case that Frostfish Creek is considered a riverway and has its own different buffer zone?
I believe that the buffer zone that we show is the buffer zone for the creek.
I thought that the rivers had 200 feet buffer zone.
So the 200-foot riverfront area, the 200-foot is not the buffer, it's the entire resource area itself.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify that, and I also wanted to ask Angela, just to follow up, that is floodplain also mapped on your site map?
It should be. So the site map is based on what's available on the Mass DEP Priority Resource File Viewer. So, you know, we use that as the base. That's all I can say. I'm not the GIS person, so I can't speak to it as well as they'd be able to, but, you know, that was what was used as the base for the map.
But it's not on the legend that's provided that I can see. What a wetland buffer and 100-foot buffer. Floodplain is not, how is it depicted?
I can't speak to that. I don't know of floodplain in that area, but I'm not saying that it's not there. I mean, that was originally why I'd reached out, you know, to the commission back in March to make sure that we had everything mapped properly. So if it's not on the Mass DEP file viewer, I had made the assumption that there wasn't floodplain in the area, but it's possible that there was.
Do you know, can you give us some of the context about these wells? I mean, I understand that there was old contamination at the site associated both with the laundry facility that was there and an underground storage tank that had leaked. These monitoring wells, I'm not going to talk about the recovery wells, but the monitoring wells were installed in the locations that they are for the reasons that are kind of obvious from the site map to track any kind of underground contamination that's moving towards the water. When did they stop being monitored, and is there an order from DEP that continues to require any kind of monitoring at the site?
Right. So the recovery wells were part of a system that, you know, you're correct that there was an underground storage tank associated with this laundry facility, and it held number 6 fuel oil, which is a very heavy oil. And recovering it is extremely difficult. So the system had been in place for a number of years, and the site was closed out. I'd say, I believe it was about 20-something years ago that the site was first closed out. DEP did request that the status be changed from a permanent closeout to a temporary closeout. So we do go in and review the site every 5 years and just make sure that there's been no status change to it. But DEP has agreed that this old system isn't capable of recovering any more of this number 6 oil. So the recovery system it's been left in place, I think more because the old laundry facility, you know, that operation ceased to exist decades ago, and, you know, it was difficult to, you know, to continue to have people involved in the project that were able to fund it, since the company itself was, has been gone for decades. But, you know, we finally been able to gather the resources to at least abandon those 3 recovery wells, which right now are open pits of oil in this property. So, you know, we're really wanting to get it done as quickly as possible and get them out of there. The DEP is involved with the project. Obviously, it was them that asked that we go to this more temporary monitoring, this temporary solution as opposed to the permanent one. But, you know, everybody's agreed that the system is no longer functional. It's, you know, it's not operated for 20-something years.
If the recovery wells are removed, basic question, what happens to the oil that is still there?
The oil is still going to be there regardless. So right now there's oil in these recovery wells. And there's a small, well, I shouldn't say small. So that RW1, RW2, RW3 triangle that's shown in red,
Yep.
there's still number 6 oil on this property in that area. The thing about number 6 oil is that it's really heavy. It doesn't really move. And it's very difficult to recover, which is why the system wasn't recovering anymore, even though it's, was great for years and recovered thousands of gallons. It's just stopped because the layer is pretty thin.
Yep.
So when we abandon those 3 wells, what we're going to do is dig around the top of them a little bit to make a little pit, and then we'll have a welder come in and cut the steel off so they're not these open basins anymore. And then we're just going to fill it in with material and just cover the top so that it's no longer a hazard to anybody. But there's still oil in that area in general, not just in the wells, but in the area between the wells as well. And it's not ever going to go anywhere. It's just permanently there and no longer recoverable.
And has DEP given approval to this process?
Well, it's an LSP-led process. It's privatized. So DEP is aware of the project, but they don't approve or disapprove of this sort of thing.
Okay. And again, since those recovery wells are not in our jurisdiction, our focus is on, so I go back to the question, is there any ongoing monitoring obligation associated with the site?
Every 5 years, we go check to make sure that the oil hasn't moved at all. So I will not be removing every single one of those black wells. I'm going to remove all the red wells because, like I said, they're rotting open pits of oil on this otherwise nice property that are, in my mind, at least an attractive menace. I mean, I always worry about stray cats or something falling into them. But, we do some of those black points, the black monitoring wells. Every 5 years, when we have to go out there and say that the status hasn't changed, we do check those wells to make sure that the oil hasn't moved at all.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not removing every single well on that in this figure. We'll leave, say, like 5 or 6 of them near the oily area to ensure that we can still document that the plume's stable.
Okay. Other questions from other commissioners while I make my notes?
Clark.
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
Okay, I have many decades of experience, both installing and removing wells of all sorts at contaminated sites, since that's what I did professionally in my career. And so I have a few questions related to the site, which is, when was the last time you took soil samples or groundwater samples of the site, and what was detected?
The groundwater samples were taken, I think it was either 10 to 15 years ago last time that we sampled out there. It's not really leaching into groundwater to any appreciable degree anymore, but it is a GW1 area. Since, if you've been doing this, obviously you'd know that the whole Cape is GW1. It is above GW1 standards, the compounds that were detected in groundwater. We don't really anticipate that it will decrease to GW1 to below GW1 standards anytime soon. Obviously this is an area near the ocean. The water is brackish anyway, so it's not going to be used as drinking water, but there are continued exceedances in the groundwater. The soil, honestly, I've been working with the company that I work for now for almost 15 years. We have not collected soil samples from this site during that time. The site's been closed the entire time. Obviously, there'd be exceedances because there's separate phase number 6 oil, but I can't speak to the levels or how widespread they are. I know that the site boundary itself is just a small portion of the 497 Orleans Road property. So obviously there's that red circle of the monitoring wells that you see, and it does encompass a larger area that extends to that gray shed that's in the south, but it doesn't go beyond the property boundary, and it doesn't really go into the buffer zone either. It's kind of a diamond-shaped site that stops by the roadway and by the shed, and then extends out east to west a little bit.
Yes, I was out there yesterday. So you mentioned that there was a cleaner on the site. Was this a dry cleaner, or was this just a straight old-fashioned laundry?
It was a laundry facility. It was not a dry cleaner. My understanding was that during World War II, they cleaned uniforms for the military. So it was just a regular washing facility.
Okay, so no kerosene, no TCE, no PCE.
No, not that I know of. I mean, like I said, this site has been closed for something like 20 years. So that investigation was done a long time ago. I can't really speak to that as much. But
Do you
I know
have any
that,
documents about the investigation? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. My apologies.
no, that's okay. I just, it's gone through the DEP audit process and everything and been asked to be reopened. So obviously, I think the site investigation was thoroughly documented and gone through back decades ago when it was done. But, that the site has been sort of in this semi-closed state for so long. I just, unfortunately, I'm not prepared to talk about it at the moment, but it's not anything that's been documented as a concern out there. It's strictly a number 6 oil issue.
Okay, I had another question. It appeared to me that you were suggesting you were gonna, you have steel cased wells. I assume it's a single layer. You're gonna whack off the top, maybe go down 2 feet, 3 feet and cut it?
So,
And then you go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I thought you were.
Okay, and then I saw references to it being filled with sand and grout, and I was appalled at the idea of sand because that would allow any liquids or contaminants to move through different layers of the soil. And again, without having the documents to look at, it's hard to imagine what kind of soil profile we're looking at a site like this. I'm used to dealing with sites that I admit had maybe 2 or 3 layers of groundwater in the space from the surface down to about 50 feet or more. And so what's the soil profile like at this site? And do we know what else? Do you have any personal information? Have you seen any documents that suggest there's anything there other than number 6?
No, I've never seen anything to suggest there's anything other than number 6. They are not single wall steel wells, they're double wall. So there's an inner well that goes down deeper and an outer well that's a little shallower to get us beyond the oil layer. So that was part of how they gauged the thickness in the wells back in the day. And it's all sand in there, so we're returning it to the natural condition by putting sand in. But I mean, that being said, it's probably going to be more of a grout mixture. We could try pumping out the oil. That's something that was discussed at one point. But the thing is that, with it being sand there, there's no way to really pump it. It would just, kind of stay at the same level.
I'm appalled, to be honest, but that's just because of my, what the standards were when I was doing this kind of stuff.
Well, it's correct.
That you were going to put anything in that well casing other than grout, because you would want to bar the movement of any contaminants from either upper levels into lower levels of the groundwater or vice versa. I mean, it was that may reflect the fact that most of the wells I dealt with were in California, and our standards, I'm sure, were different than those in Massachusetts. But I thought they were well reasoned, and I do not understand why on this site you would put anything in those well casings other than grout. And I mean, I understand what you're saying about the oil. Again, the more I hear about this site, the more appalled I am that it's in the condition it's in. Just again, based on what I've dealt with in the past. So why don't you just use grout? I mean, why don't you prevent the movement of contaminants? I don't know if without having documents about the site, it's impossible to know, for example, if you have aquatards or if you have various layers of groundwater underneath the site, and if the wells, if you're double casing the wells, that tells me that there were layers of groundwater underneath the site, because that's why you double case, to prevent it from from moving. So
Just to clarify that, they're double cased because of the sick soil was so thick. That was an attempt to figure out the thickness of it. So we were attempting to get below that layer of sick soil and see what the deeper plume was like. It didn't have anything to do with the subsurface itself. It just had everything to do with the thickness of the sick soil.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that, because I've never heard of double casing for that purpose.
Yeah, at the time it was fairly innovative. And just to clarify, I know I said the wells would be filled in with sand and grout. I meant grout, we would be grouting in the deeper area. We would just be filling the top out with sand so that there's not a big pile of grout sitting at the surface.
Well, how many feet of, are we talking within the casing itself you're going to have sand? And how many feet are you going to have? And what's that have to do with groundwater layers and so on? I mean, there's just all kinds of questions here that I find puzzling, just because we don't have the documents or reports to look at. So, I'm feeling kind of uninformed, shall we say, about the site, which is why I'm asking all the questions I'm asking.
No, I understand. So like I said, there's no aquifer layers, or there's nothing interesting with the subsurface. It's a sandy subsurface. The oil is floating on the top, that thick number 6 oil is floating on the top. There's these double-walled steel wells that we have so that we could get a sense of what the groundwater was like below it. We can't pull the steel wells. I mean, that, too many safety hazards, And
Oh, yeah, no, I
like
agree with you
said,
100% on that.
Yeah, and as I said, they're open now, so it's just an attempt to fill them. And, Mass DEP guidance, it seems, is similar to California guidance, with the preferred method is grouting. But you grout in the subsurface, and then you kind of return the top to, the natural condition that's there. And it's a sandy site, so we put sand on top of this grout layer after we get past the horizon where there's oil.
Okay, how many feet?
We can grout the whole thing if it's going to make a difference. It's just, I think the way I wrote it up was just a quick sand and grout above, because those are the two.
Can I interrupt the conversation, which is very illuminating, to say that two things are striking me about all of this. One is that the site map that's been provided doesn't seem to have all of the resource areas, particularly the floodplain and the riverway, mapped to them. And since this is a request for determination, and we have two questions to answer. And the first is the activity going to take place within a resource area? And we see that some of these monitoring wells are in the buffer zone. So the answer to that is yes, but we can't tell about the other ones because the resource area is not indicated on the map. And the second question is, will the activity impact the resource area? And from the conversation that Tom, that you're having with the applicant, it sounds like there's all different ways that this activity could possibly impact the resource area that are not answered in a brief document that's an RDA, and that perhaps the better way to go with this would be to submit it as an NOI and then provide more and deeper information about exactly what's happening, where it's happening, how far from any resource areas it's happening, so that we can assess the potential impacts and perhaps then create conditions that will protect the resource areas, because right now under RDA, we don't have any ability to do that.
I concur with the chair's suggestion.
Yes, Bob Rawls, I also concur. None of us have any experience with this property. I would at the very least like to have access to EPA's final statement on the disposition of the property. I want to make sure that we're not allowing or disallowing something that is contrary to that status.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
This is Kits. I totally agree. This is a very sort of confusing project, and we need more information.
I'd also like to see some soil sampling records.
This is Bob Rawls. I have one more comment, and that is, this is described as a private project. I guess I'd like to know more about what that means. If the owner is not involved, who is the owner of the property? Do they really not have anything to do with this? What is this project? It just, I guess to those who are performing the project, it's all common knowledge, but I feel like I'm in a total vacuum here.
Callie, do you have anything to add at this point?
I just had two administrative things. I think, floodplain and riverfront area should be, labeled on the plan and included on the plan. And also, if you're not taking out, kind of like what the commission does with trees that are staying and being removed, if you're only going to leave 5 to 6 wells on the property, then the wells that are scheduled for removal almost should have an X through them to clearly show which ones are going to be removed. That might be an easy way to communicate that information, kind of like what people do when they want to remove trees.
That's a good idea. So,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Bob. Yep.
There's a building and on the property, and that's scheduled to be removed as well.
No,
No. Yes.
no,
No. Okay. And there's also a catch basin on the property. What's that status?
there's no modification to the catch basin.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so Callie, back to you. Procedurally, what is the most efficient way of resolving this and moving forward?
Well, if
A positive determination and
I guess what I heard from the video is that you, Commissioner Kitts, Commissioner Rawls, and Commissioner Clark are in favor of a positive determination. So I guess the next step would be a motion for a positive determination.
yep. You
And-
can't set out an RDA until we take that vote. Okay.
This is Bob Rawls. I move that we consider this a positive determination on the request for determination of applicability, RDA.
Kits, second.
Okay, roll call vote for a positive determination on 497 Orleans Road. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Kitts,
Aye.
Del Vecchio,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So we're issuing a positive determination and advising the applicant to come back with a notice of intent covering the areas of inquiry that the commissioners have mentioned. Okay.
The next item on the agenda then is an amendment to an order of conditions, 90 Honeysuckle Lane, Eric and Gina Ogier, SE 103391, Phase 2 of the amendment process. Proposed request to amend an existing order of conditions under SE 103391 to include deck extension at 90 Honeysuckle Lane, Assessors Map 13B, Parcel 17.
Okay. So as I understand from reading the submissions, they're going to replace the entire decking and extend the deck on the east side to extend the screen porch that was previously permitted. This request came in as a Phase 1 request on September 9th. And at that point, we informed the applicant that for the Phase 2 request, the Phase 2 request has to comply with all filing requirements, including an engineered site plan or survey that is stamped by a professional showing exactly where the proposed extension is to be located. All other requirements for NOIs also apply to Phase 2 requests, such as notices to abutters, analysis of applicable performance standards, and this project is going to require a variance. The variance request has its own set of requirements, including an analysis of all the alternatives that may have a lesser impact to a resource area. None of that was submitted. I see Ms. Auger is on the platform today on the call, and I appreciate the effort you're making to do this on your own. But given the technical nature of what the phase 2 application should look like, it doesn't meet that standard. And those items that I just read off need to be presented so that the commission can evaluate the proposed change to the approved project. We just can't tell from the sketch that's hand-drawn onto, I think it was the planting plan that was used as the basis for the sketch showing proposed amendment. Given that this is within the no disturb zone, we just need that higher level of technical detail in order to assess the impact.
Janet,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Mary.
Yes.
Okay, I have the site plan from Clark Engineering stamped, dated 10/14/20. I thought the applicant submitted it electronically as well. I do have a butter notifications
Okay, good.
and a letter describing the project, the abutters list, and a site access authorization.
Okay, good. So those are all covered. That's good. I'm looking at a site plan that is still dated 2019. I don't know what other commissioners have.
Hi, this is Gina. I'm sorry. We did get the revised site plan from David Clark,
Okay.
and my husband actually drove down to Chatham and picked them up from his office and brought them to the Conservation Commission office. I'm sorry. I'm not very clear on how to go about this on our own. I actually thought Teresa from Blue Flax was going to be representing us this morning. I just found out like 15 minutes prior to the meeting that she wouldn't be here. So I apologize if you don't have.
No, we will. Thank you, Gina. We're going to muddle through this. This is a glitch we're running into with having to hold hearings remotely, and with the majority of the commissioners relying on electronic copies of materials because they don't want to handle paper, and I'm in that group. So I will in turn apologize to you if hard copies were turned in and we don't yet have the digital copies. I'm just looking to see if they are quickly available, and I'm not finding it.
I just did a search throughout Dropbox. I don't see anything recent.
To my knowledge, I didn't receive the digital copies. So.
Okay. Well,
this is Mary again.
Yep.
There should be some paper copies for Commissioner Kit, Delvecchio, Ron Holmes, and Tom Clark.
Mm-hmm.
They should have paper copies.
Okay. Well, Ms. Auger, maybe the thing to do then, do you have access to digital copies, electronic copies of your site plan?
I don't. I have the hard copy that I could figure out how to scan and submit.
What are people doing, Callie?
I think the thing to do is, rather than have the Augers, the town has access to a large format printer.
Okay.
And so I would hope that, that we can scan that large format plan from David Clark to the commissioners.
Okay.
David Clark's on the line.
Oh, hi, David.
Okay. I will send you a PDF of the site plan this morning
Okay.
when I'm done with the meeting.
Okay. Well, that takes care of that then.
Thanks, David.
So do you want to continue this matter then, just to?
Let's, with apologies again, we've got issues all over the place. If we continue this to the next hearing date, which is November the 18th, perhaps Teresa Sprague will be able to attend then. We will all have a chance to review the updated site plan, and then we can have an intelligent conversation about this.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
I've been calling. I know Mary. I've been nagging her. I just need to make sure I understand what it is that you need from us. And the variance request. I don't recall. I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Is that something that David Clark's on the line? Is that something that David had possibly submitted when he submitted the site plan?
I wasn't planning on submitting one because we're not altering a resource area in this project. It's a cantilevered deck coming off the existing building. There's no alteration of the ground at all.
I think that's where some of the confusion came from, was because the phase 1 submitted by the Augiers was a sketch, a hand-drawn sketch of the proposed work with a hand-drawn arrow to it. So it wasn't entirely clear what it was. So I think that's just I'm not saying that to point fingers at anyone. I'm just saying that might be the root of the confusion.
That addition to the way it was described is the addition of a screen porch, and I could not tell whether that's the same as the cantilevered deck. So it was not clear to me whether there might be an impact, a change to a resource area.
Certainly a project narrative would go a long ways to moving this along a lot quicker. So I can have one provided for the meeting on the 18th.
That would be, we would be grateful for that, because I think I agree that that addresses what we need addressed. All right, Ms. Augier, so David will he'll give you a narrative that will describe, he knows how to describe the project and any potential impact the project might have to a resource area. And he can.
Okay, I thought I had already submitted that, but apparently I didn't. I don't know. I talked through this with Mary, and I thought that's what we had, dated September 29th. But if there's something different than what I already submitted, and I believe it went to, the letter went to Janet.
I saw a letter dated August something, and that was the one that talked about a screen porch, in which it caused me some confusion.
Right. When I resubmitted everything, the package was dated September 29th. We drove down there. We left it outside the box of the conservation office, and it had a narrative in there, but.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the same.
I think maybe the narrative wasn't as clear, and I think that's what the commission is saying. Janet, are you okay?
I'm okay. I just knocked over a thing of water onto my computer, so hang on a second. I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way.
I think
continue this then to November 18th, and Callie, you can be in touch with her to make sure that review what we have and what we don't have, and
I think David Clark's still on the line, and he's going to resend the digital copy of that site plan as well as a project narrative that describes really the engineering or the mechanical requirements of whatever the proposal is, rather than have that come from the homeowner with a hand-drawn sketch.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Since Janet is sort of unable to participate for a minute, is there a motion to continue this then to November 18th?
Bob Rawls moved to continue to November 18th.
Kits, second.
Bob, can you handle the rest of the motion?
Yes, I guess we'll have a roll call. I guess Joe?
I vote aye.
All right, and let me see. Bob DeVecchio,
Aye.
Tom Clark,
Aye.
Ron Holmes,
Aye.
and who am I leaving out besides Janet? Janet's back.
I'm back.
No.
Myself, yes, I vote aye. That's very good.
Okay, so the motion then to continue it to November 18th is passed. And now is there, so we're good.
All right, we're good. I saved my computer, we're fine.
All right. I'm going to read the next item on the agenda. Notices of intent, 185 Sears Road. Wait, I'm sorry, I was doing too many things at once. Did I do that motion right? Did we do
Yes.
that motion right? Okay.
Yes. It's a unanimous approval of the continuance to November 18th. We're good.
Okay. 185 Sears Road, Richard and Sandra McDonald, SE 103450. Proposed construction of a porch addition to an existing single-family dwelling at 185 Sears Road, Assessors Map 11A1, Parcel 2.
David Clark here on behalf of the McDonald's. What they're proposing is a small roofed entry to the north side of the dwelling. As you can see from the site plan, the dwelling separates the activity area from the coastal bank to the south. The net increase within the outer 50-foot buffer is 29 square feet. We're providing mitigation as shown on Phil Cheney's landscape plan. I think the project is self-explanatory, and we don't believe that it'll have any adverse impacts on any resource area.
Okay.
David, I have your site plan, which I'm showing now. I don't have a copy of your landscape plan.
Yeah, that was all part of the package.
Okay, why don't you guys go ahead and then I'll try to find it again.
Yeah, it's not in the electronic copy. I'm just scanning through the electronic submission.
Why don't you guys move forward?
Yeah,
And then I'll
well, that is, that, for me, that is the question, because I noticed that there wasn't proposed mitigation. I accept that it's only 29 square feet of impact. But let me open it up to questions from other commissioners. Bob, do you have anything?
No, not at the moment. I thought there was no mitigation offered, so I guess we need to see that missing plan.
Bob Delvecchio, you have questions?
Yes, I have the plan, and I have the fragrant sumac seen at the top of the bank as it would be planted at the top of the bank. I didn't see any stakes when I went out there to see exactly where it would be planted, but I got an idea of where it would be. It looks like it's part of some older mitigation. There's some inkberry at the top of the bank as well. If it's part of that older planting, I'm in favor of the area that it's going to be planted in.
Okay.
Phil Cheney, I'm here on the line if you have any questions about the mitigation.
Yeah, so Phil, it's part of the older mitigation.
Well, there's a gap at the end. There's a continuation of the line of existing fragrant sumac. There's a gap at that end of the line there that I thought it made some sense to close that in and fill in that with some more.
Oh, sure, yeah. That sounds good to me. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Tom, any questions?
I also have the mitigation plan, but I just had one question. I just wanted to make sure, because when I went out and looked at the site, I wasn't exactly sure what it looked like. Do I understand, David, that it's basically is just a build out, so to speak, of the first floor and second floor, kind of creating like a
Yeah, it's I don't have the architecturals other than the footprint, but it was my understanding is they wanted a covered entry, and so basically removing the front step and building that portion out so they have a roofed area over the stoop.
Okay, that conforms to what the plan seems to show. So that's. Thank you for clarifying.
Along that note, I want to note that the comment letter from ZBA, from the zoning board, indicates that if there's a little bit of confusion there. She says if it's a proposed porch, no filing is required. However, and I had the same question, whether there's going to be a second floor addition above the porch, and if so, then a ZBA filing would be required.
I believe there's some work on the second floor, yes. So the short answer is yes.
Okay, then Sarah Clark says in that case, proposed additional information will be required to determine if a filing with the zoning board is required. So I guess you need to have a conversation with Sarah and find out what information she needs.
Yeah, Chris Cannon's the architect on this. I will notify him that Sarah's looking for more information.
Okay.
So I did track down, I think the paper copies of Phil Cheney's plan were received, but not the digital copies. David, I just sent you a quick email to see if you could send it to me, but I know if you're not able to do that, that's fine. But since the commission can't really close this project until everything is at least filed with the appropriate local boards, would you guys feel comfortable continuing this to the work session on the 4th, assuming that in that time David can submit the digital copy of the landscape plan and the architect can reach out to our central permitting coordinator, Sarah Clark, to discuss whether or not a filing with ZBA is needed for that second floor addition?
Yeah, I don't think the second floor addition is really an issue here, whether it has to go to zoning board or not, and that typically a second floor addition wouldn't require a filing with conservation.
Right, I totally agree with you. I don't think there's an issue. It's just we can't close on a project.
Oh, no, I understand, and I have no problem continuing to November 4, and I will get you Phil's plan.
Okay. Okay. Ron, I'm sorry, I'm going to apologize. I skipped you. Do you have any questions about this?
No, I don't think so. I guess I'm sitting here thinking that if we had not so far as a rendering of what the proposed project would be, but something to indicate, because we seem to have questions about what is this going to look like, and do we have any kind of something like that coming our way to say what exactly it's going to look like? What is the second floor part of it? Is it really just an overhang porch, or is there more to it than that? I guess I'm a little confused on what it looks like.
And that's a zoning and
yeah. Our inquiry is limited to the impact on the ground, kind of regardless of what happens above that. That's what the zoning board will be looking at to make sure that that they don't need a filing for that.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we can continue this to the work session, and on the assumption that everything works out right, that the zoning board says there's no filing needed, and we'll get the planting plan to those of us who haven't seen it yet. So is there A motion to continue this to the work session on November 4th for order of conditions.
Bob Rawls moved to continue to November 4th work session for OOCs.
Kit, second.
Roll call vote to continue to November 4th work session for 185 Sears Road. Commissioner Walls.
Aye.
Pitts.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So we'll
Just
take
one question would I have. Will you be writing an order that day too?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Assuming, yeah, everything is.
Assuming the filing goes through, if it's needed to go to ZBA, we can't issue the order and close the hearing until, if a filing is needed, until that's done.
Right.
Even though the zoning is unrelated to conservation issues?
Well, it says in the Wetlands Protection Act that a filing with all the local boards as necessary. So it's not that a ZBA decision is needed. It's just that if a filing is needed, it at least has to be filed.
Right.
Even though the work is unrelated to the Wetlands Protection Act? I think that's a little of a stretch.
No, but the act says that we can't close and issue an order unless applications that are required have been filed.
Right.
We don't need a decision. We just need to know that it's been
The
filed.
work within your jurisdiction.
I don't know. I don't think so.
If we were proposing a shed outside your jurisdiction and that was the only part of the project that had to go to ZBA, I just don't see how the two are related.
I do think that it's on a project basis, not on a resource area basis. At least that's my understanding of the language in the act. It's the project. We will check that out and make sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I move on?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm writing this down.
Okay. 82 Jericho Lane, BK Enterprises, Oyster River Boatyard, SE10 3446, proposed reconstruction of existing permitted and licensed boat ramp at 82 Jericho Lane, Assessors Map 10C, Parcel 3.
Yes, hello, this is Mark Burgess. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Good morning, Mr. Burgess.
Yes, good morning. So yes, Mark Burgess of Shorefront Consulting, representing BK Enterprises. They are on the line, and the contractor, Anchor Marine, Chris Norgio, is also on the line to answer any questions you might have in regards to methodology and things like that. I know a few of you have been out at the site at high tide. I don't know if you made it out at low tide. The problem becomes really apparent at low tide, and all the pictures that I included with the filing were taken at low tide. The purpose of the project simply is to reconstruct and properly reconstruct an existing boat ramp. It's been used since the 60s. It's very difficult to use. At low tide, boats have to be backed all the way down over the end of the ramp on the steep section. And then vehicles can get stuck doing that. At high tide, you only have a couple of feet of water anyway. The ramp is nearly unusable, but they've been making do, but it's time to do it right. So what we've proposed is to steepen the ramp to a proper slope, which is 7:1. And this provides 3.6 feet of water at low tide at the end of the ramp. Now, originally we were going to try to shorten the ramp by 6 or 9 feet, but it was brought to my attention by the boatyard that they run trailers up around the garage area, and if we start the new slope, it'll create a trench up at the top of where the ramp is now, and the trailers will get hung up on it. So what we did in the revision was we were starting at the existing outer edge of the ramp, and then moving landward, and the 7:1 slope meets about 53 feet where it meets grade. This way they have plenty of
I'm
room.
sorry, Mark, I just need to interrupt for a second. Callie,
Yeah.
can we lost your screen share with
I
the.
know, I'm getting a lot of background feedback and I can't project and control the feedback at the same time. So
Okay.
I'll get there.
Go ahead, you do that. I'll look along and see where the feedback might be coming from. Folks who are on the phone, if you're not speaking, can you please mute yourselves? Except for the commissioners. And folks who are, okay, that seems to have helped.
Okay, I've got it up now.
Okay.
Okay, Mark, I've got the screen up. You can see it.
Now, where'd you leave off?
Well, I said that starting at the existing end of the ramp and going landward, the ramp will be shorter on the landward side. We need 53 feet to meet the existing grade. Basically, the way that this is done, and I've done a number of these for municipal projects, and I redid a private boat ramp as well. So what we do is we encase the whole boat ramp area in sheet piling so that the work can be done in the dry. So the top of the sheet piling is a couple of feet above mean high water so that we can account for some storm surges. Once the sheeting is in, then the area can be worked in the dry. The soils can be removed, the proper stone base put in, and then the concrete sections, whether they're precast or cast in place, get laid down. And when it's all done, you can remove the cofferdam and everything's, back to normal. The grades on the north side should match when we're done. The grades on and when I say that, meaning we're going to take out the hump that you see out there, and by the time we get down to the end, it'll be the same as the grades that are on either side of the ramp now. This ramp is kind of acting like a groin or a jetty. So the sediments will be freer to move also along the river. So let's see. The other thing I wanted to be clear was I had a conversation with Ted Keon about permitting for this. So I was under the impression that only local permitting would be required because that's what I had done before. So I'm going to say the 3 words that my wife loves to hear, and that is, I was wrong. This does need a dredging permit. That is already in process. It's being fast-tracked through DEP. Because it's only a dredging permit, it's a 15-day public comment period, so all the timelines are shortened. And I've already submitted a letter for minor project modification for the redesign of the ramp, and that was all discussed with DEP ahead of time, and it's all already in process. There's a chance. Well, we're certainly going to get the dredging permit in short order. So the other concern for the project is the salt marsh, and what I tried to write clearly in the narrative is that we're not going to touch the marsh. The idea I've probed, and the pavement goes right to the marsh, which makes sense. You have to skim the pavement out of the way first, and then the sheeting can be driven right next to the marsh without touching it. It just driven right next to it. That's our limit of work on the south side. Also, as far as silt producing activities, the driving of sheeting isn't necessarily considered silt producing, but in this site, if they drove the sheeting at low tide, the majority of it's only the outer edge that's actually in the water. If you look at the low tide line, there's not a lot of, most of this is in the dry at low tide, which is the problem of using the ramp. So all the other sheeting up both sides can be driven in the dry to begin with. Having said that, Division Marine Fisheries has commented. They, I think, are applauding our use of the cofferdam and the construction methodology. There is a time of year restriction from January 15 to June 30th for, I believe it's tomcod spawning, for silt producing activities. So if the sheeting was considered a silt producing activity, it's only the outer end of it, and we would need to get that sheeting in before January 15th. So this is a commercial boatyard. It's a small business in town. The timing of this is critical so that they can get the work done over the winter in time, so to start launching boats again in the spring. Let's see. I'm thinking that's kind of it in a nutshell. You seal the area with the sheeting, remove all the stuff you don't want, all the unsuitable soils and material, put the proper materials in, and when everything's done, you remove the cofferdam. I think what we're leaning towards with Chris Norgio is that the sheeting that's going to be on the south side, I have an option in the plan to use the timber curb. I don't think we're going to do that. I think we're just going to leave the sheeting in place on the south side. That will be the retaining wall, if you will, where the grade starts to go below the existing marsh. It leaves 6 inches more room for trailers to maneuver, and we don't have to take it out. So the sheeting will be high at first. When the project's over, we'll trim it to grade. We could put a decorative cap on it and basically walk away. Now the sheeting is intended to extend about 3 to 5 feet beyond the salt marsh. So that'll protect the edge of the marsh. There's plenty of soil there right now. We just want to keep it there so it doesn't move around too much. And then the end of the ramp will be allowed to naturalize. I suspect that if there's any extra soil out there, as soon as we open this up by deepening the end of the ramp, Mother Nature's going to move it all around and fill in the hole at the end of the ramp now. I think with that, I'll open to questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And you answered a couple of my questions right off the bat. Thank you for that. Can you explain though what the sheeting material, so I'm glad that the timber is going to go away. I think you do need that extra space that it gives you away from the salt marsh. I'm very glad to hear that the line does not go through the salt marsh. What is the sheeting material composed of? What is it made of?
We're going back and forth between potentially using an epoxy coated steel or vinyl.
Okay. And then, so it gets installed. How far above grade is it does it need to be to hold back the water and keep the work area dry?
I would say 2 to 3 feet above mean high water. That should protect it from waves and a storm surge. And if we do get a big storm and the area floods, then you simply would have to wait for low tide and pump it out again.
Right. And how far into the sediment? How far into the ground below does it go?
Usually with sheeting, you put the same amount of sheeting in the ground as you have above ground. So at the end of the ramp, you're going to have you're going to have at least 6 or 9 feet. So you're probably using 20-foot sheets by the time you're at the end of the ramp. But of course, as you go further landward, they don't have to be as long.
Okay. And then when work is completed and to restore the tidal impact on that, you just cut the sheeting material to grade. Is that what I understand you to say?
Correct. We'll trim it flush to grade. So in that respect, none of the soil south of the boat ramp will be disturbed or moved.
Okay. I'm going to write all of that down and make my notes. That was one of my areas, and I'm going to open it up to questions from other commissioners. Bob Rawls, questions?
I guess I have a few. I guess I have a general comment on the statement of the description of the performance impact, the adherence to performance standards in the NOI. Typically, what we get is a recitation of each performance standard and then how the project does or doesn't meet that. What we have in your application is a paragraph addressing each resource area with a sort of a summary of the impact. So it's difficult for me, and I think others, to figure out whether or not all the applicable performance standards were addressed without going back to the regulations and looking at them. So I'm just making that observation and requesting that be in a format that allows us to follow along more closely with what was met and what wasn't met. And I also don't believe there was any, as far as I can tell, you address the state regulations, but not necessarily the town regulations, the applicable regulations, as far as I can tell.
I'll also add that land under the ocean performance standard analysis is missing from the application.
Right. So
plus salt marsh.
There's no work in the salt marsh, so that's not affected.
You're within the 50-foot no disturb zone of the salt marsh in this work, and so you need to apply for a variance.
I believe I did that.
Yeah. Okay. Then I missed it, and I apologize.
Yeah, there's a variance there.
Oh, there is. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I guess the only other question I have, I couldn't quite follow the description of the hump and the hole. If you could just sort of summarize that again, because I wasn't following it from the narrative.
Okay, so the hump that I'm talking about is really the existing ramp as it is now. As so much of it is above the low tide line, it's just this bulbous landform that's not doing any good to anybody. The on the plan, if you look at the proposed detail at the bottom of the screen, where it says existing, oh no, where you had it, yeah, right there's good. Where out on the outer end, right where your cursor is, it says existing grade. That's the hump. So that gets removed.
Oh, okay. I see it now. Okay.
And the hole, if you look on the site plan, the hole is that looks like 8 foot deep hole right at right at the end of the ramp. So my guess is within some tide cycles and currents and everything else, any extra sand that's beyond the cofferdam is going to end up in that hole, and the whole area is just going to smush together, and those contours will end up being straight lines instead of curved.
Okay.
So that's the hump and that's the hole.
That's the hump and the hole. All right.
Yeah.
So during your presentation a moment ago, you said in the application it said that there was an option for leaving the cofferdam. It sounds like you've decided to leave it. So I think when you resubmit whatever we asked to be resubmitted, you want to say definitively what will happen. Not when we have an option in there, we don't know how to deal with that in terms of writing OOCs. So whatever it is that you've decided to do, just have that be in the NOI or in the amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can revise the narrative to state that we needed.
And on the site plan as well, which also refers to it, I think, as timber.
Okay. Obviously, we needed to get this file to get it in the system. So since then, we've been talking to Chris, and we all agree it's just better to leave the sheeting in place once it's there.
Okay. That helps with our writing our findings to know that that's the decision and it's made.
Right. Yep. That's all I have.
Okay. Bob Del Vecchio, do you have questions?
I got a couple. How long will this project take?
I'm going to defer to Chris Norgio on that one.
Okay, the project should take about 45 days to complete.
45 days, okay. And the sheeting will be removed after the ramp is installed on the east side and the north side?
Correct. All the sheathing will be removed except for where it retains the salt marsh.
Okay. And how is the sheeting installed?
The sheeting is installed with a vibratory hammer.
Okay, can that be done from the north side of the marsh when the sheeting is installed next to the marsh?
Yeah, all the proposed work would be inside the footprint of the existing ramp that's in place now. So there will be no foot traffic on the marsh.
Okay, so how do we know that someone isn't going to be walking on the marsh while this sheeting is, or any of this work is done?
We don't know. Someone may walk across the marsh.
Okay, so I'm thinking that we should propose to have some mats when the work is being done on the marsh to make sure that marsh is not disturbed.
Okay, I agree with that.
Can I make a comment there? I don't see how anybody other than pedestrians would be walking on the marsh on the south side. All the work is once the cofferdam becomes a fence, really. I mean, there's no work south of that on the marsh, and then putting mats there in case somebody walks is just going to damage the marsh. So for me, that doesn't make any sense.
Is there no possibility that people would be on that side to access something on the edge?
Since all the work can be done from the existing ramp area, I don't see why anybody has a reason to be on the south side of that sheeting once it's installed. There's no work to do there. You don't store anything there. You can't jump over the sheeting. It doesn't.
Wasn't your question though, Bob Delecchio, wasn't your question about matting the marsh for the installation of the sheeting wall?
Right.
I was just concerned about the marsh itself, and I know when any work is done and workers are around, their tendency to walk, just to make sure that, things are done properly and so forth. I'm just wondering if maybe we should even have maybe just a temporary fence around the marsh. Maybe if not matting, just to just make sure no one disturbs the marsh.
Yeah, it could be cordoned off at the top with the construction fencing or flagging or some temporary stakes, anything like that. But once the cofferdam is installed, which literally Chris can put a truck on the ramp and install the sheeting. Once the sheeting's done, there's all the work's done inside. I see no reason for anybody or anything to be on that marsh.
Okay, well, we're going to put in a standard condition that at all times during construction, during the project, that the salt marsh will be protected from any kind of damage.
Correct.
And it's up to you to determine whether cordoning it off with a fence is the best way to do that. I agree that putting marsh mats down if they're not needed could result in more damage to the marsh. So the order will leave it to you to determine what the best way is to protect that marsh and ensure that it's not damaged during this project.
Okay, sure thing.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe, I skipped you. Do you have any questions?
No, my questions have been answered. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Tom, questions?
The only question I have is about the variance application, because I just went, we've all been bitten by the bug apparently today. But with reference to this matter, I just went through every document that I have on the site, and I don't see anything related to a variance. So.
We have the variance language and I can put it up here on the screen. The variance language is contained within his narrative. You see the different alternatives discussed on page 2 of 5. He discusses 4 options, and then in a letter that's dated December 23rd, he officially requests the variance it's sort of like, it's on page 30 of 41 in the digital filing, but it's a standalone letter. Do you see that, Tom?
Yeah, I have the letter and I'm looking at it.
The alternatives that Mark discusses are on beginning on page 205 of his narrative, and then it go on to page 3 of 5. Janet, well, I also have a few items for at the end when the commission has done asking their question.
Okay. While Tom's looking at that language and assessing it, Ron, do you have any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to read, I have a question that's going to relate to the letter we received from Division of Marine Fisheries. So let me pull that up. They write that DMF has reviewed the NOI to reconstruct an existing permitted and licensed boat ramp on the Oyster Pond River with respect to potential impacts to marine fishery resources and habitat. Revised plans were received after the NOI was received. Comments below reference the revised plans. Approximately 87 cubic yards of sediment will be dredged. There's the answer to that. From the boat ramp to allow a steeper grade, so there will be approximately 3.6 feet of water at the end of the boat ramp at mean low water. The project site lies within and adjacent to mapped shellfish habitat for soft-shell clam, quahog, bay scallop, American oyster, and blue mussel. Subtidal waters within the project site have habitat characteristics suitable for these species. Land containing shellfish is deemed significant to the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and the protection of marine fisheries. Salt marsh is present along the south side of the existing boat ramp. Salt marsh provides a variety of ecosystem services, including habitat and energy sources for many fish and invertebrate species. The area abutting the proposed pier has been mapped by DEP as eelgrass habitat. Eelgrass beds provide one of the most productive habitats for numerous marine species and are designated special aquatic sites under the Federal Clean Water Act 404B1 guidelines. Every effort should be made to avoid impacts to eelgrass. Oyster Pond River is also utilized by winter flounder and horseshoe crabs, and every effort shall be maintained to protect these species. DMF offers the following comments. First, a cofferdam is proposed around the boat ramp. DMF agrees with this approach as it allows work to occur in the dry. If for some reason a cofferdam is not utilized, DMF recommends a time of year restriction to protect winter flounder and horseshoe crab resources. No silt producing work shall occur from January 15th to June 30th of any year. DMF agrees with the cofferdam sheeting being installed directly within the boat ramp footprint. If the cofferdam sheeting remains at the site on the south side of the boat ramp, DMF would like to see a side profile of what the sheeting will look like once the boat ramp is constructed. We want to ensure water flow and sediment are not impeded by this vertical structure. Third, appropriate containment techniques should be used to prevent construction debris, stormwater runoff, and loose sediments from entering the marine environment during construction. Special care shall be taken when working near salt marsh, and DMF agrees to remove all concrete blocks and mooring block from the project site. So, two questions that brings up, Mark. One is, what information do you have about the potential presence of eelgrass if it's been mapped as being adjacent to eelgrass?
Mark and Chris, you're going to have to unmute yourself because there is a fair amount of feedback coming. So either unmute yourself through the program or press *6 if you're calling in.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Okay.
So I've been out there at dead low tide. There's a couple of pictures that show the end of the ramp. There's no eelgrass anywhere around there, and certainly not in the footprint of the ramp. The DEP eelgrass sites haven't been updated in a very long time. And I think the eelgrass is shown, I haven't looked at it recently, but I believe it's with the beds that they do show, if they existed, are out into the river, not in the shoreline. But other than that, with all the mechanical disturbance, I can't believe that any eelgrass ever grew anywhere near this ramp, with trailers being backed off the end of it and concrete asphalt blocks and everything else. But yeah, there's pictures that show the entire edge of the ramp at low tide. And there's nothing growing other than where the marsh is.
Can you submit those photos so that we have some kind of documentary evidence of the absence of eelgrass?
They're in the filing. All the pictures that came with the filing were.
All right, let me take a look at that again. Okay.
So part of the confusion here, Mark, is that the Land Under the Ocean performance standards, which include a discussion of eelgrass, wasn't submitted. And I'm not pointing fingers, but I think that by including that in this revised submission would be, it's required, but it would also be beneficial.
Yep. No, I get it. That's no problem. I'm sorry I left that out.
Okay, so we'll add that. And the second question is, DMF has asked to see a side profile of what the sheeting will look like once the boat ramp has been constructed.
Yeah, I responded back to them. If I copied everybody in my response, I responded back to them by saying that the sheeting will be in the same footprint as the timber wall. So it's going to extend to the 90 line there. So the same shading on the proposed detail that shows the stepped timber wall, that's where the sheeting will remain. It remains where the salt marsh, where the grades change down to the base at the 90 there, which is beyond the existing salt marsh. So in the narrative, I said that the sheeting was going to remain, the sheeting or the timber wall was going to remain about like 3 to 5 feet seaward of the edge of the marsh, and then the rest of the soil can naturalize.
I think it's up to the commission whether or not you want to actually see that on a plan, which in my reading of what the state had asked for is that they also wanted to see it on a plan. So it's up, it's up to the commission what you want to do.
Well, it's basically going to be a dark line in the same location as when I remove the curbing, I could put a label that says cofferdam sheeting in this area to remain.
Okay, well, since the site plan needs to be updated anyway.
But I thought you said, so you're swapping out the material, the timber for the sheeting. And so they're going to be in the exact location at the exact height as the timber.
Well, the timbers were stepped because they weren't necessarily trimmed. So the existing grade line, the black line, is curved, but the timbers go right pretty much to the top of that line. So that's where the sheeting would be trimmed. So I guess once I remove the timber, it'll be a little clearer.
Right, and you'll also take off I guess that you're going to get that, so the cofferdam will be left on the south side. So somehow that needs to be included in terms of both the height of the sheeting during construction and then the final height as it will exist once it's been trimmed.
Yeah, I'll show. I think it would be too confusing to show two different cofferdam heights on the elevations. So I'll just show what's going to remain.
Okay, I think that'll.
Okay.
Yep.
This is Kits. I have one final question from my side.
Yep.
And that is on the curb detail profile on the plan. There are eye bolts or these straps that are sort of installed in the substrate there. How are those going to be put in?
Well, if you pour it in place, those are placed in the concrete when it's poured. The straps can be, those are essentially bolted or with concrete anchor screws to the sides. And either one of those, it's an option to the contractor as to which one he wants to use. That only applies in the precast sections, and it basically joins them together at the seams.
Okay, so there's going to be no need to be working on the outside of the slab.
Correct. Those pins,
Okay.
yeah, the straps are on, yeah, so remember,
The north
those would
side, it looks like, yeah.
yeah, those are on the precast pieces. If it's cast in place, it's all one piece, so you don't need those.
Has a
Okay.
decision been made which way to go with that, precast or cast in place?
Chris might be able to answer that.
It will be cast in place.
Okay, then maybe to avoid some of the confusion, that can be reflected on the plan too, and remove all the language that says this precast or cast in place.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Joe. Callie, anything else from you?
Yeah, I have two questions. First is if you're leaving the actual portion of the sheeting wall in place permanently, then in my opinion, that requires a Chapter 91 waterway license, and that was also flagged through DEP. And so I was wondering what the status of that is.
Yeah, I had submitted a letter for a minor project modification to the existing license, and I have in writing from DEP that was the course of action that would include the cofferdam.
To remain permanently in place?
Yeah, it's in the same licensed footprint, so it doesn't really change. It doesn't change the license. Enough.
Can you send that along as documentation as well as documentation for the dredge permit?
Yeah, do you want the email or do you want me to wait till I get the permits from them?
Well, I would imagine the commission, and I'm ultimately up to the commission whether or not I would imagine that the commission would want documentation that, he has started the process through the state filing, considering there's been some misunderstandings along the way about what's been required. I would imagine you guys would want documentation to make sure that's been done in accordance with what the state does require.
Right, and in this case, Callie, clarify for me, please, is there any constraint on our ability to close or issue an order until after the Chapter 91 process has been concluded?
Well, that's what I'm thinking about as far as documentation that the process has started.
Right, right. We definitely need that. So the email mark or whatever correspondence you have that shows that the process is underway.
I can send you copies of the letter and the application.
Okay, those need to be in our file so that we have that.
And the response from DEP, do you have that, Mark?
Yeah, I have the letter that tells me what to do, right? I mean, I have the email from Brandon that tells me what to do. Okay.
And, DEP has issued some guidance to the towns that, this permitting should be done prior to the pre-construction meeting, so that all the paperwork is in line prior to the pre-construction meeting. So, I mean, that's something that the commission has typically required.
I understand. I've been working with DEP. Like I said, they're fast tracking this because they understand the urgency to at least get the cofferdam in. That's the most important thing, is to get the cofferdam in, and the timing of that. Now, I'd like to separately. I think I'd go back to DMF and ask them if they consider driving sheeting a quote silt producing activity, and obviously Chris can use a silt curtain.
Sarah Luck, pick up the phone.
Hold on.
You got a call.
Sorry. I'm not sure vibrating sheeting. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not sure vibrating sheeting causes is necessarily a silt producing activity when you're driving it through. You're not driving it through mud. You're driving it through basically sand and gravel. But that was the reason for the urgency, was just to formally try to at least get the sheeting in the ground at least at the low tide by January 15th. Everything else can be done after that,
Okay.
And, yeah, so it was always our intention to have all the permits in place before that sheeting is driven.
Okay. Kelly, you
Um,
had something else you said?
Yeah, that's it for me. We read the letter. You guys asked for when you're ready, I guess I'm ready to summarize what.
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. So the timber curbing will be removed from the project narrative as well as the plan. You guys asked for a side profile of the sheeting to also be included on the plan. You're going to resubmit, you're going to submit the performance standards for the local local regulations, and you're going to include both the local and the state for land under the ocean and resubmit that. And that's all I've got.
The emails from DEP.
Oh yeah, emails from DEP.
And remove references on the notes to precast.
Yep.
That's all I've got.
I'd like to ask a question. So I've been writing these narratives for years, and I know I missed the land under ocean. I get that. I'm not certain as to how we've ever split the performance standards between local and state. I've always done it this way. So I've never had to separate them like that. So and I'm not sure that in regards to what we're doing here, I'm not sure that there's any difference between them.
Well, the difference is that you're doing work, as Tom had mentioned, Commissioner Clark had mentioned, within, the no disturb zone. And there's some requirements for an adjacent upland resource area, which are specific to the local regulations. So, I think for a long time I've been trying to nicely say that you need to be doing these performance standards, and I'm sorry if that hasn't been communicated to you in the past, but this is what's always been required, and it's included on the NOI checklist.
Okay, I will do my best.
In some cases, Mark, it's simply a matter of adding the citation to the local as well when they are identical. And when they diverge, then the citations just need to be separated so that we can make sure we can, in our part, making our findings that performance standards have been met in each and every case requires us to go through both the state and the local and check those boxes. So we need to be able to do that.
Okay.
And it's really not a matter of the commission, not wanting to do that work, but the burden of proof rests on the representative.
I get it.
Yep. All right. Is there anything else? Anybody else on the call have anything to say about this, or remember to make a comment or ask a question? Hearing nothing, is there a motion? Then we'll continue this then, Mark, to November 18th, which is the next hearing date.
Bob Rawls moved to continue to November 18th hearing.
Kits, second.
Roll call vote to continue this to November 18th. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Kits.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. It's unanimous. We'll continue this to November 18th, and you've got your list of things to do, Mark, and we will gather here at that time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And with that, it's 10:39. I think everybody needs a 5-minute break to stand up from their computer, stretch your leg, get your eyes off your screen, take a quick break before we continue on to the agenda. So, Mark, it's 10:39. We will regroup at 10:45. Okay, we're back. So Callie, you want to lead us to the next item on the agenda, please?
Sure. The next item on the agenda is 243 Bridge Street. The Mill Pond Nominee Trust is the owner. James C. Brady and Kevin J. O'Donnell are the trustees. SC 10-3439, proposed reconstruction of existing pier, ramp, float, stairs, and gazebo deck at 243 Bridge Street, Assessor's Map 15B, Parcel 3.
Hey, good morning. This is Roger McNevich from Coastal Engineering, representing the owners of this property. And this being a continued hearing, there was a number of questions and concerns at the original hearing for the project. And in response to those questions and concerns, we went to the site, obtained additional site-specific information, and made additional revisions to the plan, resubmitted, and if we can bring it up on the screen, we can bring it up on the screen. So this is the revised plan for the project. I can go through the various items as I recall.
Yes, if you would please walk us through the changes, that would be appreciated.
Sure. One of the concerns was the actual in the 20 by 20 float, and the commission wanted to reiterate and be sure that the actual float units themselves were encased PVC encased foam. There was no raw foam floats. So what we've done is we added a note to the plan that that's exactly what needs to be done. If it doesn't exist, that when the facility is put back in the spring, that will be outfitted with the coating of the raw foam. It's a standard item, so it should be easily accomplished. The other major concern was there was concern about the water depth, and I guess there's a number of these pier facilities where the floats actually sit on the bottom at mean low water. We were able to go out and do survey work and produce the profile now at the bottom of the plan. We put bottom information, elevation, and you can see that the entire float from one end to the other has at least 2.6 feet of water at mean low water. So I think it's fortunate here. This site still has plenty of water depth at the mean low water. So that's what's represented on the plan. Other comments were there's an existing rinsing station at the site that we didn't have on the plan. We've now shown it. And in talking with the owners, yes, they
Uh-oh, Roger?
Oh, we seem to have lost Roger.
Let's see. It's still showing as he's on the platform. Maybe he was. Of course, that could be a ghost, as often happens.
Well, I think he got through most of what the commission had asked for. He was going to talk about the rinsing station.
Yep.
Which he did cite on the plan.
Yep.
I would imagine he was talking about, obviously, this existing rinse station here. That was the only other thing I think the commission had asked about was Bob Del Vecchio mentioned that there was some erosion on the bank. And his site plan here also shows that the existing clay drain pipes to be removed from the beach. So I think that was most of what you guys.
Callie, I'm back. We had a rock call here.
Okay.
Back,
well, Callie covered it all for you, Roger. So yeah.
Oh, very good.
She covered the rinse station. Yeah, we were. So I'm going to let Tom address this because he brought it up. He took some pictures yesterday with respect to those existing clay drain pipes. And he was looking at the extent to which they appear to be broken and could have been causing some erosion on the bank underneath the stairs. And I guess the question I'm gonna do a presumption here and say I presume the question he's preparing to ask is what investigation in terms of any potential erosion that's happening on the bank will happen in conjunction with this project, and what will you be doing about it?
Well, this facility has been in place a long time, and the bank hasn't really changed in location all that much because this original facility was built with stairs over the bank, so there hasn't been appreciable erosion. Of course, there can be expected to be some, and as you can be seen by the clay pipe remnants that are on the beach there now, which proposed to be eliminated. We also mentioned in our notes that the pipe section that's remaining will be capped off, so there'll be no more erosion, and no more water coming out of the pipe, if there ever was any. I believe the pipe is collapsed. The owners tell me that there is no open catch basin anywhere on the property anymore with just to accept water into the pipe. It's pretty much an abandoned facility. That's why we called it to be capped off. The owners may at some time in the future choose to come back and do a new filing and propose some coastal bank erosion protection, soft solution type of facility, but that's not part of this application.
Okay. Tom, do you have a follow-up on that?
Yeah, I noticed that the erosion on the bank extended beyond the clay pipe, and again, when you talk about capping it off or removing it or whatever, are you saying that there's no input now into the pipe? That is, it's not conveying water, even though there's clear evidence of water caused erosion on the bank?
Well, I believe I'm getting my information from the owners of the property. I don't know where this comes from, and I don't see anything on the site anywhere as a source for the water. So if there is any water, it's maybe rainstorm groundwater getting into a joint, perhaps somewhere else within the soil mass, within the lawn area, perhaps something like that. But I think we're proposing to cap the pipe to preclude any future water coming out of this pipe. It would just stay within the ground, like it does everywhere else on the site.
Okay, well, there seems to be, like I said, I'd be happy to meet out there with you and point it out to you, but there's very clear evidence of erosion. Actually, looking at your drawing, if you go to from the timber deck, if you go west, you have a line there that talks about the mean high water, and maybe that's what's getting into the bank. But that area where you've got the hump on the mean high water line at 2.5 feet, I assume, clearly shows a lot of erosion happening there. The other thing I noticed while I was out there was, this meets the old standards, and particularly going over the salt marsh. There's been some recent publication of research by basically led by John Logan, who's one of the state folks, that says that in order to minimize impact on the salt marsh, based on his experiments, which are reported in the literature, that the height of at least that part going over the salt marsh should be 1.5 to 1, not the usual 1 to 1. They also point to, well, you're already north-south, which is ideal from their point of view. And then there's, let's see, one other finding that they made from their research that doesn't leap out at me at the moment, but would suggest that the guidance that's currently out on these type of structures is dated, to say the least. And so anyway, I don't know if you've seen it, if you'd like me to send you a copy, but I think that the height of the pier going over the salt marsh needs to be increased. And then the other suggestion that was made as a result of the work that was done was to suggest that the spacing of the piers also be maximized.
Thank you.
This is Roger again speaking. We are well aware of the Division Marine Fisheries criteria of the 1.5 times. This being an existing structure with fully licensed, and again, we propose to keep it just as it was actually permitted, licensed, and installed previously. I presume the commission does have the prerogative, if they so choose, if they would like the pier to be raised. I believe they do have the authority to make that a requirement in the area over the salt marsh. So that's something that we would need feedback from the commission on. This is going to be reconstructed, so we would need to continue that discussion a little bit more. If I could get feedback from the commission on that issue.
Well, it's come up. It comes up every time we look at a pier or a catwalk. We're aware as well of the DMF recommendation of increasing that ratio to 1.5. We've concluded, and looking at it many times, that it is a recommendation. I think that we are moving. I'm going to go on a limb here and say we're moving in that direction of perhaps adding that to our regulations for new permitted projects. I don't believe that we've ever had a conversation about changing it and requiring it for a repair or reconstruction of an existing permitted project. But we haven't gotten to that point yet, and I don't believe that the commission will do so until we've had an opportunity to make an announcement if we're going to do a policy change like that, and provide adequate notice to applicants that going forward new structures may require that that ratio of 1.5 to 1. We're not there yet. What are we looking at here?
I have no idea. I don't know who's sharing their screen.
Oh, this is us. This is a cross section of the fixed pier during the off season when we were doing our survey work at the site. If I can speak a little bit to including erosion control of the coastal bank. I recall we recently have another proposal before the commission, and previously on that project, which is actually the one we're going to be talking about next here today, we had requested an application to do a little platform and stairs over the coastal bank, and also included a short section of erosion control at the same time along the coastal bank. And the commission at the hearing told us they didn't want to commingle the two functions. So what we have to do is we have to remove that portion of the project from the filing, and then go through, get an order of conditions for the stairs and little platform. And then we have to go back under a completely separate filing for the proposed erosion control of the coastal bank. And so with that in mind, that's why when I get involved in this project, I said, well, gee, that seems to be the policy of the Chatham Conservation Commission. So we won't commingle those two things on this site, because we'll
right. Get. But you're not yet at the point of that decision has not yet been made to actually install any kind of erosion control, correct?
Right. I think the owners would consider that for sure. I mean, it's their property. I'm sure they would like to have some kind of erosion control application for that, but perhaps under a separate filing with the.
Yeah, I think again, as in the previous one, the next one coming up, having them separated is a better thing to do, particularly if the erosion control portion of a project has not been fully decided upon. We just don't want to start trying to write orders that are for projects that are not yet planned. That may be a good idea. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Do we have anything else then on this? I think we're ready to write an order.
Janet, could I make one comment?
Yes, go ahead, Tom.
I'm sorry, Callie probably muted me to because of all the static. I was just hoping that as long as you're thinking about things, one of the things that would certainly be helpful to the commission in the execution of its duties is I noticed there was an awful lot of, and I'll be polite, destruction of salt marsh along that area. Obviously, people have been dragging boats and stuff, I would say, along the area. And there's also to the west of the timber deck, there's a clear path that I call it an elevator, and I'm just using the term facetiously, that has been created in order, I assume, to lower or shove boats down the bank. It looks like somebody's carved out a ramp in the vegetation, and you can see it both from the bottom and the top. And so I just bring that to your attention as something else that probably needs to be thought about, because clearly that kind of open exposure poses a significant threat to the stability of the bank.
Okay, point well taken.
Yeah.
We understand.
That's closely associated, I would say, Tom, with the issue that, and I saw it in the photographs here too, that because there's a requirement that private piers and catwalks must provide for public access across them because the public has a right to walk, it becomes problematic in areas such as this part of Mill Pond where there is no set walking path in sand, but people walk through the marsh and trample it. And unless and until there's a change in the law that enshrines that right, it's very hard to, if it keeps going, eventually the salt marsh will be trampled and it probably will turn into a sand walking path. But allowing that kind of public access also acts as an invitation for landowners to utilize areas of the salt marsh for other purposes, shall we say. That they need to be much more protective. So I agree with you on that.
Maybe we need to talk to our representatives.
Yeah.
So is there a
This is
motion?
a problem that we've seen at a couple of sites where clearly somebody, I mean, in this case, you can see where the trampling goes beyond the property line. So clearly I'm not pointing fingers at the folks that own this property. I'm just saying that this is just something that's there, and maybe we need to start thinking about how to deal with that, because you're quite right. This will eventually cause significant permanent harm to the salt marsh.
Yep, all around Mill Pond and many other waterways. I would add.
Yeah, no, we've seen it all over.
Well, maybe the Conservation Commission needs to take the lead on pushing some sort of change in that. Although it's a tough place to go into. There's a well-known and well-cherished public right to walk. So anyway,
I'm not against public access by any stretch of the imagination, but when it's destroying the salt marsh, it worries me.
That's right. And it also acts as an invitation, and that bothers us too. So we'll have to put that on our list of things we need to get some input. I think it's a good idea from some of the representatives who know more about the engineering and technical side of these, how we might best protect the marsh. Okay, then I think we're ready to take this to the work session on November 4th. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Bob Rawls moved to continue to the work session on November 4th.
Kitts, second.
Roll call vote to continue to the work session on November 4th for 243 Bridge Street. Commissioner Walls.
Aye.
Kitts.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I'm going to skip Ron because you were not here on the other hearing of that, and so I will vote aye. And so 5-0, it goes to the work session on November 4th for review of a proposed order of conditions. All right, next item, Callie.
Okay, and I know Roger is here for this next one. 70 Judges Way, Everett and Joyce Husing, SC 103440, proposed shoreline protection for scarp repair at 70 Judges Way, Assessors Map 11B, parcel R6.
Okay, so same as before, Roger, you were sent away last time with a list of things. We've got the revised plan came in. Do you want to walk us through very quickly the changes that were made to it?
Sure. Roger McEvitt, Coastal Engineering, representing the applicants here. If you recall, our original application was based on a request by our client to do like a double multiple application, which consisted of a first concept of coastal bank stabilization using matting material and some planting, reshaping the bank slightly over this small area. And also that had failed under the same order that we were requesting to be able to go into a coconut fiber roll installation, which we had details on the plan. Based upon feedback from the commission, we eliminated in discussing with the owners, we eliminated the coconut fiber roll proposal and then came back to just the erosion control mat proposal in the area shown on the plan view. It's essentially a 10-foot by 12-foot area. And we had kind of just did an overview, made a statement that it would be replanted or whatever. And I guess the commission was concerned that they need more specific information. So we got back to the owners and they reached out to Crawford Land Management. I talked to Nick Crawford and had some feedback from him. And he's going to be retained by the owners to provide and do this work. That's my understanding. And they supplied me with the information shown in note 4, okay, which is, and it's essentially for this area that they highly recommended these different grasses and sedge, as shown in note 4. And they would be plugs placed at a spacing of 12 inches on center, is what Nick was telling me. He said that provided assuming that that approval would be obtained in sufficient time, this work could be done still this year, he felt. Otherwise, it would need to have to wait until after the winter period. So that's pretty much what the changes were for this application at this time.
So did Nick Crawford say that, is he going to prepare a planting plan or a plan that will be followed?
Well, if I recall, and again, yesterday I reviewed the hearing, and the comments were made at the previous hearing that we really didn't use the planting plan, at least for this little, but I'm sure Nick can put together a planting plan.
Well, it's less that. It's just that, as I recall looking over the notes from the last hearing, what the commission was asking for was a specification of the location, the size. I do see 12-inch, so I was adding density to that. And the locations should be on the site plan. You don't need a separate planting plan for this, but the site plan should have the location of where these grasses are going to be planted.
If you look up in the upper middle section of the plan, you see the existing deck and stairs going down. You see a crosshatched area that does show a 10-foot by 12-foot area. It's called out as proposed scarp erosion repair area planted with grasses and see note 4 below. But you will bring it up on the screen now. You can zero in.
I'm just dealing with some background noise.
Yeah.
Here, we brought it up on the screen. You can see it right here.
Okay, and then
Note refers to note 4, which has the details of the plantings based upon feedback from Crawford Land Management.
I mean, ultimately it's up to the commission of what you guys are going to require. I do have to say that this type of planting proposed in this fashion, usually leads to 95% confusion when the project goes from permitting to construction, because there's no timeline for activities, there's no density of the planting, there's not much information as far as how it will be constructed on the ground, other than we'll install these plants in this general area. Which is why I thought the commission had asked for more details on it.
Yep.
Usually Crawford submits something quite different, and they're pretty used to appearing before the commission. So that's my only comment.
Okay, this is Roger. I was responding to the comments made at the last hearing where it was mentioned that we really didn't need a planting plan, that we, as long as we listed the plants, and we do call it spacing, and we do show this crosshatched area where it's going. I'm sure that we can reach out to Nick Crawford and get a plan, a planting plan, a land management plan that that organization normally produces, but it was not my understanding that that would be required for this filing. I'm sure that he can put together that plan and submit it to the commission, whether we do it now or prior to construction. It can be done quite easily.
Well, yeah, my notes from the last hearing on September I think the 9th were a planting plan should be submitted specifying species, density, size, and location. My notes indicate that the plan, that the concept was to plant this in the spring of 2021, not that you were trying to make a fall planting season. Has that changed?
Well, this is Roger again. What I had done is reached out to Nick to say, is there an opportunity? Is it too late in the season? And his feedback to me a few days ago was, yeah, there's still possibility from his perspective. I don't know if the owner is anxious to get this in for the winter season, or he can afford to wait to the springtime. So we have to go through the whole winter storm period. Again, we can go either way. It's not required to go in. It comes down to if the owner feels he would like to get it in, and Nick feels that the plantings can be put in and that they will survive, that they will thrive and survive through the winter and into the springtime. So I'd have to leave that up to the professionals, which is Nick himself.
Okay. Yep. Well, let me open it to questions from other commissioners. Bob, do you have questions for Roger?
No, I think what we asked for is generally provided. I think in this particular case, the area, because the area is shown and the density is indicated and the species are indicated, I think it's, to me, an adequate description of the planting. It would be, I think there should be, if at all possible, planted this fall, just to preserve that bank over the winter. So I would like for that to be just definitively decided on sooner than later. We're mid-November now.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. That's good points. Bob Del Vecchio, what do you think?
Same. Yeah, I think those are valid points, and I'd like to see it protected before the winter storm season. And I think, the spacing is there, the plants are listed. It's just a 10 by 12 area. If you wanted just a basic planting scale, maybe he could provide that in the meantime. But other than that, it looks good to me.
Joe, do you have any questions for Roger?
No, just one comment when we write the order that I think photographic evidence should be provided kind of on an annual basis.
Yep. We add that for annual monitoring and reporting with photographs showing the current stated. Yep. Tom?
I'm satisfied, and I agree with everybody else's comments.
Okay. Ron, I'm going to skip you again for the same reason as above. Yeah, I will say that weighing it, I wish that we had a planting plan, particularly when you're relying on the plants to be the main source of protection against erosion and problems for the bank. But I also agree that we asked for location, size, and density and species, and we've got that. And I also agree that the damage that's happened to this bank in the past has generally happened during the winter months. So in the hopes that this erosion control blanket and the plants will protect it during this winter, I'd prefer to see it go in sooner rather than later so that that protection can be underway. Callie, is there anything that you need?
No, if that's the way the commission's going to go, then that works. Okay. I will second what you just said, that, you know, planting on this bank is basically the whole project. But I can see the need to plant sooner rather than later. I just, you know, there's no guarantees of how this will be constructed if there's not, you know, a timeline associated with the project. And I do want to clarify that there's a middle ground between what was submitted today and a full-on land management plan with a restoration plan. I don't think the commission was asking for a full-on land management plan and restoration plan. They're asking for something in the middle, which is what other companies sometimes provide, which is like a 1 to 1.5 page summary of a timeline and a description. And then they either reference a site plan with a note, which is what Roger did, or they create their own kind of sketch. So I think that's more of what the commission was asking for. Mm-hmm. And I agreed with that just because the whole project is about planting and the plants providing stabilization for the bank. But ultimately, it's up to the commission and how you guys want to go, and whatever you guys decide.
Yeah, I agree. I wish we had gotten that, and I don't. I'm going to have to, I think we'll just cross our fingers and hold our breath and hope that it goes well.
Yeah, because without a timeline for the project, that means there's no timeline for the project.
Yeah.
Can we have them submit something at the pre-construction meeting?
Or maybe even better, submit something at the work session, you know, by Friday this week.
Well, and then actually sort of document what species goes where in the planting.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Joe, that's a really good point. I mean, some plants in certain areas for stabilization, some plants are better suited closer to the water versus further away. So there can be a gradation of what is planted along the surface of a bank. So I really think a 1-page summary from someone who has this experience would go a long way, especially for a project that relies on planting, and that 1-page summary to include a little bit more information about timing and how it will be maintained over time for the duration of the 3 years. You know, it's not really rocket science. It's just, I think the document should be included, but it's up to you guys.
Yeah. I know, Roger, I can't ask you to speak on behalf of Nick Crawford about when he could get something like that to us.
Yes, what I'm going to have to do as soon as we end this meeting, I'll reach out to the owners who would have to contact together with me, Nick Crawford, and see if they could get something to the commission by Friday. I'll have to check and see if we can do that. But I don't think it's a problem putting together such a plan. I have to just check in his timeline.
Right. It's exactly, yeah. And availability. Well, my suggestion is that let's continue this to next week's work session in the hopes that we get that and we can incorporate that into the order of conditions. And if it doesn't go well, then at the work session, we'll continue it to the November 18th hearing date.
Okay, that's reasonable.
All right. So let's try that. So do I have a motion then to continue this to the November 4th work session?
Bob Rawls moved to continue to November 4th work session.
Kitts, second.
Okay, roll call vote to continue this to the work session. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Kitts.
Aye.
Del Vecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So All right, Roger, see if we can get it in by the end of the week and we can then write an order.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 125 Stage Harbor Road, Golden Orchard Properties LLC. The SE10 number is actually assigned. Proposed garage addition, proposed construction of swimming pool, 125 Stage Harbor Road, Assessors Map 14D, Parcel D11.
Okay, so.
Good morning.
Good morning.
David Clark here.
Yep, good morning, David.
Um,
We have some revised plans.
Yes, you do.
Materials.
So you should be in receipt of a revised site plan, the revised restoration plan, and a new lighting plan for the footpath. Looking at the site plan, we moved the pool equipment outside the no disturb zone. Added information for the end of the footpath where the gate is going. So the gate that's proposed is outside the no disturb zone. It's right off of Cross Street. And I also added from the lighting plan the location of the each structure and the associated wiring. So moving to the lighting plan. If you can get that up on the screen. So what that is depicting is basically the light contribution for each individual unit. And so you can see that there's no light pattern from any of the units that are within the BVW, and we also show the street light out on Cross Street, and you can see the significant pattern that existing condition to the resource area. As stated at the first meeting, these are low voltage. I believe they're 12-volt lights, 3 watts each. We prefer to hand trench for the wiring. Obviously, there's some significant trees down the path. The code does not require burial of this wire, so where we have significant roots, we propose just to lay the wire on the ground and cover it with 6 inches of mulch. So the applicants love the trees that are down there, and they don't want to do any damage to those trees. So using low voltage type fixtures is the way to go in this particular instance, in that it does not require full burial of the wire. The lighting consultant is, I believe, online today, and if you have some more specific questions about the lighting, be happy to answer them. And also Wilkinson is on board today for discuss the restoration plan. I don't believe there's any significant changes to the restoration plan. I think most of the commissioners' concerns was the lighting and the pool equipment and the no disturb zone.
Okay, I think that's a fair statement of what the objects of the focus are. Before I open it to questions, I'm going to read. We have two, maybe more, but two recent comment letters.
We have three.
Three. So, all right, I'm going to read what I have, and then you tell me what's missing, and you'll read the third one. We have one from Roald Loken, dated October 19th. We are abutters to the property at 125 Stage Harbor Road, for which a notice of intent has been filed and which will be reviewed by the Chatham Conservation Commission. Our property is 74 Henshaw Drive to the northeast of 125 Stage Harbor. We have no objection to the proposed project. The restoration plan at the north of the property, which is part of the project closest to us, appears to be well planned and generous. We do hope that any grading or alterations done to the site will not increase the flow of water to the drainage ditch on our property. Cynthia and Roald Loken. And the second is An email that was sent from David Howard, dated October 26th. My home, located at 143 Cross Street in Chatham, abuts this property. I ask that you kindly read this message into the record. I am opposed to some of the changes being considered for this property. For starters, I'm not in favor of plans to add artificial lighting along the footpath that crosses the no disturb zone in the woodland area along Cross Street. This kind of lighting would not be beneficial to the wild animals that live in these woods, which include a wide range of birds, mammals, insects, and amphibians. I'm especially concerned about light pollution this would cause. I feel that people traveling up and down that footpath could simply carry a flashlight or use a flashlight app on their cell phones if extra illumination were needed. In addition, I'm not in favor of plans to add a gate along Cross Street at the end of the footpath. I've been living on Cross Street for decades and have regularly seen animals such as wild turkeys, deer, coyotes, and foxes going in and out of those woodlands by the way of Cross Street. Adding this gate could disrupt the ability of these animals to easily get in and out of that no disturb zone. Not only would that be harmful to these animals, but to drivers who sometimes find themselves needing to avoid these creatures. And so what's the third one, Callie?
Sorry, I have two more. One is from Arlene Lynch. She sent another letter on October 26th. Dear Chatham Conservation Commission, I am writing in connection with a notice of intent for changes, additions being further considered by the Chatham Conservation Commission on October 28th, 2020 for 125 Stage Harbor Road. My home is located at 148 Cross Street. I am an abutter to this property. Please read my note into the record, which is a follow-up note to the one I submitted on September 2020. I'm going to try to share my screen here. I'm still opposed to the addition of artificial lighting along the path that runs through the no disturb zone NDZ that is part of this property. As I mentioned previously, this footpath cuts through and runs alongside what is a wooded area within which a broad range of plants and animals, As much as possible, I believe the wildlife in this footpath space would be best if left undisturbed. Artificial lighting would constitute light pollution in this area. Multiple scientific studies have found that even at low lumen levels, artificial lighting can have significantly negative impacts on various life cycles of the plants and animals living in spaces like this. I also believe that any persons going up and down the path at night would easily carry a flashlight or use a flashlight app on a mobile phone if lighting were needed. Furthermore, I am still opposed to the addition of a gate along Cross Street at the end of this path. I believe this gate would call unnecessary attention to the path from visitors to the neighborhood, thus inviting unwelcomed foot traffic down the path from people who could mistakenly think it was a shortcut to Oyster Pond. Such a gate could also negatively impact wildlife in the area. Over the years, I have personally seen a range of wild animals, both individually and in groups, going over Cross Street into that wooded area and coming from or near that footpath. The addition of this proposed gate would impede or redirect their travels, which would make that situation more dangerous for them. That could also make the situation more dangerous for people walking along Cross Street, who find themselves more likely to cross paths with these animals, as well as for drivers traveling along Cross Street who might find themselves more likely needing to dodge animals who are looking for alternative ways into that wooded area. The animals that I've seen going to and coming from the wooded area by the way of Cross Street have included coyote, deer, wild turkey, skunk, fox, and rabbits. Best regards, Arlene Lynch. I also have one more from Elaine Gibbs, submitted October 27th, 2020. Chairperson, members, and of the Chatham Conservation Commission. This is an addendum to my previous letter of 9/22 regarding the proposed project at 125 Stage Harbor Road. The owner of the property is Golden Orchard Properties, a California LLC investment and rehab of single-family residences. In reviewing the revised site plan dated 10/14/20 and the revised restoration plan dated 10/20/20, there are a few changes from the original proposal. First, the pool equipment has been moved outside of the NDZ, even closer to my home, about 30 feet from the property line, with no evergreens planned to act as a site or sound buffer. It will be seen and heard from 2 of my bedrooms. 5 Leland cypress have now been removed versus 1 in the previous restoration plan. Lighting and a proposed gate for the path through the wetland regularly used by deer should not be considered. While the proposed pool is only 15.5 feet from my boundary and yard and a patio less than 10 feet away, no plantings have been included between the proposed pool patio and my fence. At minimum, mitigation with mature conifers would be a condition replacing trees lost during the microburst of July 2019. As an abutter most impacted, as the entire project area is on the west side and closest to my home, I'm disappointed with the lack of changes. I continue to be opposed to the size and scope of this project and hope that you will reject this application as proposed. The lot is 28,297 square feet. Of that, the no disturb zone is 15,564 square feet. The 50 to 100 foot buffer zone is 9,276 square feet. 88% of the lot is either the NDZ or buffer zone. The dwelling footprint is being increased by 56.5% and the coverage is increased by 57.4%. The proposed pool the proposed addition pool and patios will all be within the buffer zone. The engineering report states that the quality of the Aura adjacent upland resource area has been diminished by the existence of the dwelling turf lawn and hardscape features. If those are all detrimental to the Aura, I don't know why expanding the dwelling by 56.5% and replacing turf lawn with patios and a pool, increasing the coverage by 57.4% and 100% within the buffer zone can be justified, further diminishing the quality of the Aura, making conditions even worse. If this addition pool and patios are approved, I don't understand the purpose of a buffer zone. The engineering report also states that the proposed garage, pool, and patio are within areas of the property that slope away from the wetland, and that improvement to the general drainage of the area is installation of mitigation plans that will reduce runoff. If pools, patios, and buildings cause drainage issues along slopes into wetlands, this project being constructed in an area that significantly slopes towards my boundary would cause the same runoff and drainage issues on my land. There is no proposed mitigation plan to protect my property. This property was purchased in December of 2019, knowing the significant environmental limitations, the fact that 88% of the lot is no disturb zone and buffer zone, and the entire proposed project is within the buffer zone is reason alone to reject the application. At minimum, the pool should not be approved. The potential detrimental impact of the pool on this lot far outweighs the project purpose, and I believe it is unreasonable. I also request that a mitigation plan be required with plantings buffer between the addition and my property to prevent runoff and drainage and noise issues. I thank you for your consideration of the above, as well as my objections outlined in my letter, September 22nd, 2020.
Okay, thank you, Callie. Does the representative for the applicant have anything in response to the points raised in that letter?
Hi, can you hear me? This is Katrine from Wilkinson Ecological.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, great. Good morning. First, just some of there was a lot in there, but I think the main important things from our perspective regarding the mitigation for this project is that the Leland, what we were proposing for the Leland trees has not changed. That has remained the same as our original plan. And we've also, our new mitigation plan, I'm not sure that person writing the letter had reviewed our recent plan, but there are additional inkberries that are proposed to surround the pool equipment. And probably most significantly, there is a gray birch tree proposed just along the property line to the south there. In terms of, we're really focused on providing mitigation under the Wetlands Protection Act, but this applicant was very accommodating and tried to reach out to all of the abutters to try to address their concerns and the concern of privacy. In addition to providing additional habitat, that gray birch will also screen and provide some screening between the properties. And just one thing, there was an additional letter submitted on September 21st from Edward Warren, from the owners of 115 and 117 Stage Harbor Road, that I don't believe was read into the record.
Okay, hold on a second. What was the name on that?
Edward Warren.
And the date?
September 21st.
Callie, do you have that one? I'm looking.
While you're looking for that, I'm just going to add one extra thing to what Katrine just said. This is Leslie Schneeberger. I'm architect for the owners.
Okay. Yeah.
They have heard the neighbors' concern about mitigation planting on the border and have repeated that is out of conservation area. They've repeatedly tried to get a hold of her to discuss that. So they're very open to it. They wanted to review it with her as it's truly not part of the conservation application, but they are trying to discuss it with her.
Okay. Callie, do you see a letter?
I don't have a letter. Mary, do you have a letter?
I believe it was sent to Mary.
Yeah, it never was sent to me. Mary, can you unmute yourself by pressing *6?
Yeah, I just.
Do we have a hard copy of this letter that's been referenced?
I'm just trying to get a hold of Mary on the call here.
*6 is not working.
Well, we can hear you.
We can hear you, Mary.
But then you mute yourself again.
Don't mute. Elaine Gibbs has raised her hand. We'll get to you in a moment, Ms. Gibbs.
I guess, Mary, the thing that maybe is important, whether or not you have volume or not, is can you please forward that letter to me in an email so that I can read it into the record, or the chair can? Janet, you may as well go on, and we can take another break to read that record as soon as I receive it from Mary.
Okay. Are there any other responses? Let me just ask the representatives for the applicant. Any other points to response to the last letter?
I did have some additional comments about the safety lighting and the wooden gate that was discussed.
Okay, let's have it. Let's do it all.
We included in our our land management plan, additional details about that safety lighting, that it'll be low voltage and on a timer. And the lighting fixture will be short, something like 18 inches in height, fully hooded, and that it'll cast light onto the ground, not upwards or out from the fixture. And this pathway is long and dark, and this is really about a safety concern that the applicant has. And in addition, the wooden gate, I think it will definitely still allow wildlife to move through the area. Wildlife is going to go through the woods like they do anywhere. They're going to traverse, through the wooded area. So this really won't have an impact on wildlife. It will define the edge there and define the land as private property, which currently people are walking their dogs, which obviously has an impact on the wetland if people are walking their dogs in that area. So I just wanted to point that out, that wildlife will be able to continue to use this space.
Okay.
I mean, Katrine makes a good point about the lighting. If you look at the detail, it's an LED light that's inside the fixture. So the light bulb itself, so to speak, is not visible from the outside. So the light is actually cast upwards in the fixture, and there's reflective material inside that then casts it down directly on the ground. So the term light pollution really doesn't apply here, in that no light leaves the property from these fixtures.
And we're talking about having it on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes at a time, just when someone's walking through the space.
Okay.
So this is the lighting designer chiming in here for a second. My name is Emily, and I'm the one who produced the lighting plan. I just kind of wanted to jump in on a response here as well too. So additionally, not only is the LED bulb itself recessed into the fixture, this is considered a forward throw, which means it goes down and forward, so there's not backlighting as well. So if you notice where I have my circles that are in black on the lighting plan, a lot of the illumination is going in front of that across the path and not necessarily behind the fixtures, which is an added feature to these fixtures. These are indeed 18 inches in height. They are 3 watts. They are low voltage. And the circles that you're seeing on the plan, the very outermost gradation circle is complete darkness. complete drop off from contribution from these small path lights. So anything beyond that final gradation circle that you see in the plans is complete darkness.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I apologize. I've had to, and I apologize to Miss Arlene McSweeney Lynch. I have to keep muting you only because there's significant feedback on the call. When it's your turn to speak, you can press *6 to speak, but I do apologize. There is significant feedback coming from your line.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to let Elaine Gibbs, who has had her hand raised, to make her comments.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, I had sent my letter to Callie yesterday and asked it to be shared with all the commissioners so that you would have had an opportunity to read it ahead of time, because there's a lot of important data in there. It's taken me, this has been a real learning curve for me to be able to read all these maps. And I also asked to make sure that I had everything that had been submitted to the commissioners. And I've not seen the lighting plan, and I don't know if this site plans and restoration plan I have are updated. So that's of concern to me. I would debate what I think the landscape person said. I had said that 5 Leland cypress were being removed, and that was a change. I am sitting on the restoration plan that was received. I'm not sure exactly when it was received, but it said that 5 non-native Leland cypress were to be removed. So if that's changed, and it's only 1, that's fine. It doesn't impact me directly. But what does impact me directly is, as an example, the pool equipment has been moved closer to my home. It's approximately 30 feet from the property line. The entertainment patio that is going to be used by the owners is 120 feet away, so they won't hear it, but I will. In addition to the fact that it is, their home has protection from it in that it has a retaining wall and high shrubs and trees separating their home from the equipment, but not mine. So when I made a mistake, it's not 2 bedrooms you can see it from, it's 8 rooms. Every room in my home that faces out, that is what we will see is the pool equipment. So, my concern is that there are no evergreens. The only thing that they have recommended are woodbine and clematis, which are deciduous. And I think there should be a noise buffer there, assuming the pool is to be approved, which I don't think it should be. They keep referencing a garage addition. This is not a garage addition. The garage is incidental. This is 1,017 square foot addition, which I believe is going to be 2 stories. The garage is probably only 400 square feet. The rest is going to be living space with a bedroom and a living room. So it is substantial, and the entire project faces my home. The pool is going to be 15 feet from the fence. The small patio is less than 10 feet from the fence. Yes, I did get a letter from the owners, and I responded to it. They had said they would be willing to consider planting some trees, but to use their words, in the spirit of cooperation, they asked me to remove 5 sections of my fence so that it could open up their view and they would get a sense of openness. I don't consider that collaboration. That fence has been there. It's my boundary line. It's been there for 20 years. They are putting in a pool with no fence. I have grandchildren. The pool's going to be 15 feet from my home. So I don't consider that reaching out and trying to accommodate my concerns. But beyond that, when you have 88% of the entire lot in a no disturb and/or buffer zone, and 100% of this project is within the buffer zone, I don't understand the purpose of buffer zones to protect the wetlands. The drainage issues would apply to me as well as the other side. And I think a pool is not a reasonable request. They knew what they were buying into when they bought this property in December. It has severe limitations. And I don't believe a pool is a necessity. I would also point out that nowhere, I tried to go through and do a word search to see if section 10.02 appeared anywhere in the report, and it doesn't. And my understanding that's activities within the buffer zone. And under no circumstances are you supposed to have more than 40% of impervious structure within the buffer zone. And again, I couldn't find in the report the pervious versus the impervious, but 57% is the size of this construction area. And I believe that even if you took out some pervious driveway, it's still going to exceed 40%. On that reason alone, I think the pool should be removed. I think it's going to be very invasive. It's going to cause potential drainage problems for me. And again, the reaching out was more of, if you remove the fence, we will put in some buffer trees. And I didn't find that a compelling argument because that fence has to stay. So, I mean, that's all I have, but I think that this is just a massive project. It's far more than just a garage and a pool. It is an overuse of wetlands and the buffer area that have already taken a serious hit. So I thank you for your time, and I hope that you reject the pool.
Well, thank you, Ms. Gibbs. I deliberately asked for everybody's input before in a reversal of our normal procedures so that the commissioners would hear all of this before asking questions or making any comments, because I thought it would be instructive. Before I open it up to them, Ms. Gibbs, I'll just note that the language that you cited, 10.02, comes from a portion of the state wetland regulations that address questions of jurisdiction. And when an activity requires a notice of intent, and what subparagraph 2 is saying is speaking to activities in the buffer zone, and I'll quote this, are not subject to further regulation provided, and then A, B, C, D, E, F, G, et cetera, goes from there. The 40% standard in that part of the regulations is referring to the amount of impervious surface. If it does not exceed 40%, then it would not be, there is no regulation. It's not subject to further regulation. So it's not a performance standard. It's not what can be imposed at the end of the process. It's whether or not the commission has authority to even hear it and require a notice of intent. So it's different in the way that in its purpose. With that, I'm going to open it to questions from commissioners for the applicant's representatives or for the abutters. Any questions at this point? So Bob, you want to start?
Oh, yes. A complicated project, to be sure. Some of the issues that have been raised here by the abutters, it would seem to be matters outside of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, especially the area along the fence, or the back fence, between the area between the pool and the fence. And as someone noted already, much of the area is outside the 100-foot line. So I would assume this has to, I don't know what the zoning requirements are for this project, whether I assume it needs zoning.
It does not need.
It does not. Okay. No. All right. Well, so much for that. I guess a salient issue for the project is the lighting, and I'm generally opposed to having lighting in a no disturb zone. It still mystifies me to some degree why a flashlight in one's pocket can't serve the purpose, but unless someone can explain to me why a flashlight would be inadequate, I'm not sure if I understand the rationale. As for the gate, it is private property, so I understand the want and desire to indicate that it is private property to keep people from walking down a private path. I just wonder whether or not that can be handled again with a sign that says very clearly private property, not a public way, et cetera, et cetera. Because I understand the concerns about wildlife zipping across that road at night. They, for generations, they've been used to just heading down that path in and out. There's a gate there, they're gonna have to go around it. So clearly, even if there's a gate there, there shouldn't be any sort of impediments on either side of the gate, but really, what advantages does a gate have over a clear sign? And I guess some concerns have been raised about drainage. I'm recalling that drainage is not really being addressed in the project to a large extent because the property slopes away from the ditch. I guess I'm just looking for confirmation of that. But one would hope that drainage, if drainage is needed to keep water from going onto neighbors' properties, that would be addressed. So I guess I'll just ask that question generally, even though some of that is outside of our jurisdiction. And I think that's it.
Okay. Bob Delvecchio?
Yeah, my concerns were the wildlife issue with that gate. I have a concern with that gate. And I know Katrine mentioned that the wildlife can access through the woods, but still have a problem with that gate. And as for the lighting, it's going to be on a timer, so it's only going to be on for a few minutes. And how is that? I want to know how that is activated if the lighting is going to come on. And like Bob mentioned, the screening, the buffer between the pool and the fence between Ms. Gibbs' property, I think that's a separate issue that has to be addressed with the landscaper and her. And hopefully that can be resolved with an adequate screen. And those are mainly the issues that I can see right now. And so it's mainly the gate, the lighting, and the landscaping. If they can have some kind of agreement on the side for some adequate buffer.
Okay, thank you. Joe, how about you?
Well, one question. I mean, the proposed pool equipment site, is there any way that it can be moved to the north beyond the 50-foot buffer? I don't know.
Well, it's been moved out of it originally was proposed within the no disturb zone. It's been moved out of it. In doing that, it moves it closer to Ms. Gibbs' house.
It seems like that there just needs to be some kind of dialogue between the applicant and the neighbors to solve some of these issues.
Agreed. Tom, do you have anything?
Well, as I listen to this, I find myself agreeing with most of the comments of my fellow commissioners. I know it's not under the bylaw 272, it's not under the Wetland Protection Act, but this situation lends itself to thinking about, again, this is outside of our jurisdiction, but just something the town should think about, which is setting up some kind of mediation service in order to address problems between neighbors so they don't get out of hand. After all, this is Chatham, and we're all in favor of kindness and thoughtfulness towards our friends and neighbors. I had one question about the lights, which is there a motion switch that turns them on and then they go on, and then there's some kind of timer as to how quickly they're turned off?
This is Emily. This is the lighting designer chiming in on this. So right now we do not have these on a motion switch because professionally I feel that would actually cause more on off because a motion sensor would pick up leaf movement, animal movement at nighttime, and that would cause these lights to have more on off capabilities. So it's on, these are on an actual remote switch that's located. It's a low voltage switch at where the gate location would be currently shown. And it would shut off from there. And then at the other end, when you're first walking out of the house, would be the secondary location of that switch. You can turn it on and off from either location.
And then if you turn it on, is there a timer that limits the amount of time that it's on?
That would go back to how we have it switched at the house. And we could, there's two ways to do this. It could have a timer at the switch inside the house that shuts off power to the drivers that then power the landscape lighting out here. Or as an overall backup, an app could have a program in it that would then shut off the lighting after a certain number of minutes. But having this on a motion sensor would actually give too much on and off, and not just people traversing the path and physically being able to turn it on at one end, physically turning it off at the other end, and then having the backup behind in the house of having a timer on the switch itself. That's the safest way to make this only turn on and off when humans are physically walking up and down this path.
Somehow, I'm not feeling warm and fuzzy from that explanation. Just because it sends, I can easily imagine somebody flipping on the lights at one end and not turning it off at the other end, and things just hanging in there for quite some time, which of course doesn't help.
Right. So that's why overall, it gets kind of nitty gritty on how this is wired. And so I'm trying to explain this simply. When these are physically wired to a switch in the house, the switch in the house has a timer on it that will shut off power to this after it's been activated by, the physical switch on either the gate end or the house end being turned on or turned off. But it eliminates the ability for us to have a motion sensor and fine tunes the usability of this to only when someone physically hits the switch at the gate or at the house, then the timer triggers and starts. So it's a more technologically advanced timer, which gives us the ability to remove motion sensing so that we don't catch animals and leaves and foliage triggering these lights to come on. But when someone comes into that gate or someone leaves the house and physically flips that switch on, it then starts the timer inside the house, which will shut off
but then,
at whatever time.
Yeah, no, I'm not faulting you because we've heard several explanations about how this works, and
yes.
You're giving us all the lights on the pathway go on at once?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that was the information I was looking for, so thank you.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I guess it comes to my turn now. I'm still unconvinced that this lighting aspect of this proposal is necessary. I too have seen any number of studies that indicate that light is a real problem for wildlife. And it's not just that it's within the no disturb zone, it's that portions of this path are truly right up against the edge of the wetland and in the area where one would expect is one of the few remaining wildlife refuges in an overly developed section. I also believe that to the extent that it's necessary for safety to traverse at night, that a portable lighting fixture, a flashlight or a phone would do the job perfectly well. So I'd be inclined not to approve the lighting component of this. As to the rest of it, I hear you, Tom, and it seems that we are being put in the position of being the mediators, which is not what we want to do. It's not what we're prepared to do. It's not what we're good at. I don't think there's any way of making everybody who's a party to this today satisfied, no matter what we do. So we are just going to do what we do, which is keep our focus on the resource areas and follow the performance standards for buffer zones, which don't prohibit all development within buffer zones. It's the reason that we have that, because there are many properties in this town that are waterfront and therefore are comprised almost entirely of resource area and buffer zones. That's why we have performance standards, to make sure that we do whatever we can to protect that resource area, which is the role of the buffer zone. So in protecting the buffer zone, we protect the area. The area that they're proposing for this pool is on the landward side of the wetland. It's next to, right up close to the house, in an already disturbed area. It's turf lawn at the moment. And I believe that the mitigation plan does a more than adequate job of compensating for any impact from the pool and the terrace on the adjacent wetland area and the buffer zones. So I don't have a problem with that. That's where I come out on this. Callie, do you have any questions or comments to make at this point?
No, the only comment is I haven't received the email from Mary with Mr. Warren's letter. Therefore, it'll have to be read at a continued hearing for this project. I was hoping to receive it, or if Mary would be able to read it into the record herself, but I haven't received anything.
Okay. Mary, you can unmute and read the letter?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I do not have a letter. I've looked through the whole file.
Okay, well, that would explain why we can't find it and can't read it.
Well, I can research my emails. I can't do it right now.
No. It'll have to be done. It'll have to be done later, when we reconvene on this. And the question, I guess, is whether we're going to reconvene at the work session on November 4th, or we need to continue to November 18th.
This is Leslie Schneeberger. I actually have a copy of the letter. It's an email. May I read it into the record?
I don't think you can, Leslie. I think.
Okay.
Hey, Leslie, is it possible for you to email it to me?
Yes, and then Callie can.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll be checking my email now.
Okay. While you're doing that, I'm going to do one more time to the commissioners. Do you believe are you ready to support writing an order? And if so, what is your recommendation with respect to the lighting and the gate? And how would you advise the person who's going to be doing the writing, and which way the commission is prepared to go on this? Bob?
Well, yeah,
David Clark here.
David.
It might make things easier if we could get a straw vote on the lighting from the commissioners right now. The owners are on the call, and they can respond to that.
Okay. So yes, I'm going to ask commissioners first, tell me your position on the lighting and any other issues that you think are deal breakers to get or problems that would prevent you from approving the project.
Yeah, this is Bob Rawls. I think I've already expressed my disagreement about the need for both the lighting and the fence.
Okay. Bob Delvecchio.
Yes, I'm not in favor of the gate. I am in favor of the lighting if it's on that special timer that, where it comes on for 5 minutes and then shuts off. So I would be agreeable to that, but not the gate. And also, if we could add some screening to the pool equipment, so Ms. Gibbs can't view it from her property, that would be essential as well.
Okay. Joe?
I don't like the gate or the lighting, and yes, I agree with Bob on the screening, but I'm still very concerned about the open issues with the neighbors, and I don't know how to go forward on that, so.
Yeah. Tom?
I'm in the same boat as Joe. I concur in his comments and restate them as my own.
Okay, no lighting, no gates.
And
make peace in the neighborhood.
Recognizing that it's not jurisdictional, as I will, because I know that'll make David happy.
Right.
But it would be nice if some solution were found to minimize the noise and, especially since I have a feeling this is going to be a rental as opposed to somebody's living permanently in Chatham. So if that's its intent, having lived next to a rental house for several years, while they managed to tear it apart and knock down fences and other things, I'm sympathetic to people that are worried about rental accommodations getting out of control.
So this is not going to be a rental, and I don't know how that specifically relates to the Wetlands Protection Act, but this is not going to be a rental.
No, I was trying to be very clear and say I'm just making a statement of my sympathies under the circumstances, recognizing that it isn't within the Wetland Protection Act scope. But I certainly can understand her concerns, and I have to admit it tugs on my heartstrings to hear that.
And I just wanted to point out that we are planting a gray birch, a tree, in an area that we felt would really do that screening that I believe she's looking for. So there is a gray birch that will be planted, as perhaps other vegetation in that area, the inkberry that's surrounding the pool equipment. And one other thought I had was it might be helpful. I believe there was a rendering submitted by SV Design of the gate. And if possible, it might be helpful to bring that up, because you can really see how there's a lot of woodland on either side that's still on this property. I'm not sure if that's possible to do.
Katrina, is this what you're speaking of?
Yeah, if you zoom into that, yeah, you can see how there's pink flags on the right and left-hand side of the photo. So that's the property. And we're just talking about a gate that would allow wildlife to pass through in the area.
So there's substantial room under the gate, and obviously a larger animal like a deer isn't going to be bothered by going through the vegetation on either side of it.
Yeah. Turkeys are totally stomped through there too. Rendering anybody's view on the gate, Bob and Joe.
Well, there are other critters they're trying to go through there, raccoons and so forth. And if vegetation is not kept cleared away from either edge of the gate, then it effectively becomes a barrier there.
Okay.
Well, that's why the gate's set so high; they can go under it quite easily.
If they're small enough to go under it, yes, but many critters would not
and
be.
I think, and the only other critter is going to be a deer, which can easily walk through anything.
There are other animals. There are foxes, there are possums, there are raccoons, there are
quite
quite
a
few mid-sized animals around.
Which all would go under the gate.
All right, how many inches?
Okay, he's still a no vote. Bob Del Vecchio, are you still a no vote on the gate? Just straw polling here, guys.
Yeah, I'd say no on the gate.
Okay.
Some other way to mark that or dissuade people from going through.
Okay, Joe?
I'm still a no vote.
Okay, Tom?
I'm a no.
Okay, so there you have, and my vote is irrelevant on the gate because you've already got a majority against it. And I think you've got a majority against the lighting as well. So I don't know what that does for you, David, and where you want to go with that information.
Janet, I know Leslie Schneeberger is trying to speak, who's the architect. Leslie, I did receive your email with a letter, and so I'm ready to prepare that or read that into the record.
Let me do that then first, and then.
I think Leslie may have a comment about the previous discussion. Is that right?
I do actually. I have a couple comments. The first and foremost is I have received word from the owners, and at this time we would like to take the gate and the lighting out of the application, please.
Okay.
I do want to clarify this did not go to and will not be seen by Chatham zoning. We do have measures in place in Chatham that does regulate good neighborly relations, and that is why there are certain distances before you put, people used to put a lot of equipment right next to their neighbors that was very loud and very rude and caused a lot of disturbance. This project is under the coverage that's required in Chatham. It is meeting all setbacks. It's not triggering any reasons that our zoning bylaws, which cover respect of a neighborhood, it's not violating any of those. And I do appreciate that the commission has recognized that.
Okay.
Should I read the record, the email?
Yep.
Okay, Mary, thank you for forwarding the copies of the plan submitted recently by Clark Engineering. This letter is from Edward Warren and David Peterson. As residents of Carriage House Condominium at 117 Stage Harbor Road for the last 35 years, property over which all traffic to and from 125 Stage Harbor Road passes and which borders the property of 125 Stage Harbor Road for several hundred feet, we have direct interest in this design and refurbishment. Therefore, we offer the following comments, which we would like to present to the commission and to the applicants. Our preliminary review of the documents finds that the proposal of merit for it will substantially improve the plantings on this property, which have become overgrown and unsightly. By removing much of the old vegetation and replacing it with the appropriate Cape Cod plants and trees, the property will be much improved. We urge that care be taken to see that the privacy of nearby homes like ours be a factor in the design, since at least 5 residents are contiguous with 125 Stage Harbor Road. So the back of one is the front view of another. In other words, each property has a 360-degree perspective on the other properties nearby. This has always been our approach as we have developed and maintained the entrance driveway landscape and gardens at 115 and 117 over the years. We are pleased with the plans too. We are pleased with the plans that the plans protect existing decorative bushes in very good shape on the property line by the entrance lamppost at 125 Stage Harbor, and that the land behind the tall and unruly evergreen trees bordering the left side of the right-of-way driveway will be replaced with appropriate grasses, bushes, and trees natural to the Cape. We urge that the landscape design take into account the need for adequate turnaround space for vehicles entering and leaving 125 Stage Harbor Road. For the last 35 years, cars go up the driveway in a forward direction and turn around the circle by the way of the large beech tree and then proceed to exit in a forward direction. This has avoided unnecessary and very difficult backing down the right-of-way, which can cause monumental confusion in the parking areas for 115 and 117 below. If the circular approach is to be changed, then care must be taken to make K-turns easily to accomplish even for the most inept drivers from a reconfigured parking area. Hold on, there's more. It's just in the late fall, winter, and spring seasons, there is often substantial water runoff down the ditch by the fence at 125 Stage Harbor that affects the property at 115 and 117 Stage Harbor Road. As the property at 125 is refurbished and the existing ground cover is removed, there is the real possibility of water runoff damaging or flooding our parking area or grass areas adjacent to the small cottage barn at 117 Stage Harbors. Bales of hay along the edge of the ditch bed by the fence should help prevent this until the bushes and grasses can grow enough to do so naturally. This runoff is a continuing seasonal difficulty for the 115, 117 Carriage House property, so anything that can be accomplished easily to mitigate this annual problem as part of the landscape redesign for 125 Stage Harbor Road would be much appreciated. The ivy bed to the right of the right-of-way belongs to 115, 117 Stage Harbor and is maintained by and trimmed annually by us. Please see that care is taken that any herbicides used to remove plants as part of the plant removal process do not kill our ivy beds, which very nicely serve as borders between our properties at 125, 127, 115, and 117 Stage Harbor. While we will be unable to attend the Conservation Commission hearing in September, we stand ready to provide any additional information you may require. Please keep us informed of actions and decisions.
Okay. Well, that's a lot. All right, David, we're going to come back to you. So you're going to, when I say David, I mean Katrine and Leslie and Emily and everybody else, representatives. I shouldn't call you all David, that's not fair. You're going to remove the lighting in the gate from the plan. Does the current plan indicate the inkberry screening?
Yes, it does.
And the tree that you referenced, Katrine, is
yes.
that? Okay,
the restoration plan dated.
That's the restoration plan.
Yeah, 9/1/2020 with a revision date of 10/20/2020.
Okay. Okay. What is your timeline for starting this project? No one knows.
The contractor has been awarded the project, and we are submitting for a building permit.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as possible, we're looking to get approvals for everything so we can commence.
Okay. What I'm trying to work out is whether it's reasonable to try to get this order on next week's work session, or whether it should wait until the December 2nd work session, considering the.
If it can go to the work session, it would be appreciated.
Is it possible to remove the lighting and the gate from all plans and all narratives before that date?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Then we can do it one way or another. On the assumption that we get the revised narratives and plans by Friday.
Oh, you want to revise narrative? Is it really necessary? Because
the narrative is part of the record and becomes
right.
As it's just remove the references to it.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me, but we'll do it.
Okay. Don't want something in the record that causes any kind of confusion. If we can get that by Friday, on that assumption, we will continue this to the work session on November 4th. Is there a motion to that effect?
Bob Rawls moved to continue the work session on November 4th.
Kits, second.
Okay, roll call vote to continue this to the November 4th work session. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Kits.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Continue to the work session. All right, thank you everybody for all of the input and all of the work that everybody has done. And please keep working together and work with the neighbors to work over, make sure that everybody's concerns are being addressed. We only can address what we can from a conservation perspective, from what's within our jurisdiction. Many of these issues are outside of that. That said, this is an opportunity for people to be working together to make sure that concerns are resolved and don't cause problems further down the road. So we encourage you to do what you can toward that, please.
Madam Chair, could I just ask one question of the jurisdiction of the commission? This is Elaine Gibbs.
Yes.
Because you do review and approve the restoration plan, can you condition that, as far as the pool equipment is concerned, that evergreens are placed on the west side, so that I can't see the pool equipment from 8 rooms in my house? That would go a long way here to make me more comfortable, because right now it is the thing you see. And because I'm concerned that if you leave it up to us and then you're supposed to be approving plantings, then they're not going to get approved.
Well, the pool equipment is within the outer aura, so it is within our jurisdictional area, but they, Katrine might want to say it again. She said that it will be planted and screened with inkberries. And they are evergreen.
But I would like something more substantial in terms of, you know, taller evergreens that are there year round, so that I don't see the pool equipment in the winter when everything is here is bare.
You know, the selection of species for screening purposes, even within the jurisdictional areas, is not something we normally get into. But I will also ask Katrine, since you guys are going to redo some of these plans, have another word with your client and see if there's some other species that they would be happy to put in around that equipment that might satisfy this concern.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 83 Seagull Road, 30 Wikis Way, parcel N133, also known as 0 to Squantum Road, 27, 59, 75, and 97 Tillipy Run, Seagull Enterprise Properties, LLC, USA Weather Station, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Quidnesset Associates Incorporated, New Milford Realty Corp., 59 Tillipy Run Trust, Chatham Seabreeze LLC, and TR97 Tillipy Nominee Trust, SE10 3424, proposed dredging and sand placement at 83 Seagull Road, 30 Wikis Way, parcel N133, also known as 0 to Squantum Road, 27, 59, 75, and 97 Tillipy Run, assessors maps and parcels 15A-1, H98, 15A-2, N133, 15A3-US1, 15A3-N136, 15A3-N137, 14A3-N131, and 14A3B. Applicant has requested a continuance to November 18th.
Good golly, we had to read that every time. So anyway, is there a motion to continue this to November 18th?
Bob Rawls moved to continue to November 18th.
Kit, second.
Roll call vote to continue this application to November 18th. Commissioner Rawls?
Aye.
Kitts?
Aye.
Delvecchio?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Holmes? You're allowed to vote on continuance requests.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We'll take that to the 18th. Okay.
And then the next item on the agenda, I know Bill Riley has emailed me since this time. This project was put on the agenda in error. This should have been actually on the November 18th hearing agenda. So I'll read it into the, do you want me to read it into the record?
You don't need to, because it's already been continued to the 18th. So I think it would confuse the record.
Yeah.
For us to read it now.
Okay. So certificates of compliance, 43 Wells Hollow Road, Heather Caney, SC10 3034, certificate of compliance requested to construct an addition to the existing dwelling, install a gravel driveway, reconfigure existing walkways, replace an existing boardwalk, and ecological restoration activities. I recommend issuing the certificate of compliance for this property, specifically with ongoing conditions 10A, as well as some of the conditions in C and section C for drainage, C5, 6, 7, and 9. I'm happy to discuss those if you want, but I did meet on site with a contractor who performed the work, and the area is definitely coming back. The ecological restoration activities were really successful.
Well, that's good to hear. So, yeah, fine. Yeah, we get one. So I don't have any questions. I'm ready to ask for a motion to approve the request.
Bob Rawls move to approve the certificate of compliance.
Okay.
Kitts, second.
All right, roll call vote to approve the request for certificate of compliance. Commissioner Rawls?
Aye.
Kitts?
Aye.
Delvecchio?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Holmes? You're allowed to
Aye.
vote, and I vote aye as well. That one's approved. All
Okay.
right.
The next item on the agenda is violation 41 Frostfish Hill, Patrick J. and Rosemary O'Reilly, grading, constructing an access road, cutting and otherwise destroying trees and other vegetation, and lack of erosion controls and a conservation restriction. I will mention that at this time, the erosion controls have been installed. So that is That is, at the time when this agenda was created, they weren't in place, but they are now.
Okay, and I see that Mr. O'Reilly is on the call today. If you want to unmute your computer, please. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yep.
Yes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. In the interest of time, I'm just going to summarize what we know about what's happened here and lay out a possible path forward to resolving it. We know that an access road, trees were cut and vegetation was cut in order to try to provide an access pathway to the rear of your property to construct a pool and patio. It went through the conservation restricted area. So we are designated as the supervising entity for this conservation restriction. It was given to the town. The town holds it, and the Conservation Commission is the entity that deals with it. So it's not a violation of the Wetlands Protection Act that we know, but it's a violation of the conservation restriction. And so what we will need in order to resolve it is an understanding of exactly what has happened where, and a very clear understanding of how it's going to be resolved. So in order to do that, we're going to ask you, and we'll put it on the letter so you don't have to worry about it at the moment. We'll ask you to have a site plan prepared that shows not only the extent of the conservation restriction, but because this property butts up against some waterways and some clear resource areas, we need the site plan to delineate resource areas so that we can determine whether or not the activity happened within areas protected by the Wetlands Protection Act and the Chatham bylaw. So a site plan of all of what was impacted and where, and a restoration plan that describes in detail how the area will be restored. And by restored, since this is a vegetation issue, what will be planted and where. And all of that is marked on a plan that can be built upon the site plan that is being prepared. So the site plan forms the basis of not only understanding what happened, but you can have marked on the site plan exactly what's going to be planted where, so that everybody is clear. And then once we approve that, then we can issue an order or an agreement with you that it will be restored according to the plans. Is that clear to you? Do you understand that?
Yes. Just for the record, I did talk to Callie and to the commission. It was my error. I realized that this doesn't get me off the hook, or I just want to I wasn't trying to hide anything. It was an error. And then I found that Cape Cod Commission ruling after I got a 146-page title, and now I know sort of what the violation is. And my plan is, as I said to Callie, to come up with a plan and replant and get it right. Right.
But before you start, the site plan and the restoration plan is the starting point for all of that.
Yes.
Have you had any conversations with anybody yet about getting that work underway?
Yes, I have a couple of landscapers and an engineer, and I'm trying to put that together.
Okay. Yeah, the engineering is the starting point for the development of the site plan, and then the restoration. What's going to happen from the landscaping side can be overlaid over that site plan. Well, it's hard to schedule this because a lot of it is going to depend on how quickly the folks that you get on board can do it. The way we sometimes handle this is by giving you a date, and if for some reason they're not prepared, it doesn't work out for that date, then we will continue it. As you have heard already this morning, we have to do that a lot because things often take longer than what is expected at the outset. But I would like to think that well, perhaps if everything goes well, it can be done inside of about a month, in which case we would schedule it for review and approval at the December 2nd work session. And in order to do that, we would.
Janet, I thought that's only, you want to review it, so that gives them a month.
Yep, November 25th.
So they would have to get the revised plans in by November 20. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong calendar here. That would mean if December 22nd is.
No, December 2nd.
December 2nd, they would have to get the revised plans in by November 25th.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to ask you to shoot for, Mr. O'Reilly.
I have a question, Janet, Bob Rawls.
Okay.
That is, the restoration plan, is that, since it's within a CR, but not within a, we don't know whether it's on.
We don't know that, right.
But if it is not within a wetlands area, but it isn't a CR, what do we say with regard to native species or not? Because the applicant talked about talking to landscapers.
The language of the conservation restriction. So we will look to that, and they often, well, it would probably be replacement in kind in terms of the species that were removed. Depends on what the restriction says. Because restrictions are designed to leave an area alone, they don't often address the question of what an acceptable replacement is. So we would need to get some information about exactly what was removed.
Right, and the reason I bring it up is that if the applicant goes out and engages landscapers, and if those landscapers are not familiar with native restoration, and if it turns out that that's really what we're looking at in some or whole, then it'd be good to work that question out sooner or later.
So, Mr. O'Reilly, it would behoove you in terms of this process to make sure that the company that you engage to do the work actually on the ground is a ecological restoration professional, not just somebody who understands this. This is a very particular area of landscaping.
David Clark is on the line.
Oh, I'm sorry, David, are you there?
Yeah. Is it okay if I speak, Patrick?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because this isn't wetlands habitat, I don't think he needs a restoration specialist. I think all you have to do is approve the plants that are going to get planted. As long as they in kind of what was removed, I don't think he needs to. I think his landscaper that's doing the work now can install those plants.
That's certainly possible depending on how the site plan shows the delineation of the wetland areas. If we are inside a jurisdictional area, then yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident we're a couple hundred feet from a resource area at this point. But.
Okay, so if that's the case, then we would be prepared probably to approve in kind whatever was removed gets replanted. Otherwise, you might need a restoration ecologist.
But Madam Chair, Bob Rawls, if there were non-natives removed, we certainly, as a conservation commission, would not be predisposed to approve non-native species be put back there. So, and plus, we don't know what was removed.
I think we're kind of putting the cart before the horse
a little bit. Yeah.
I think these are all really, really valid points. I think, and I know that Mr. O'Reilly would like to speak because I see him lighting up. So I will mention that in a minute, make sure he has time to do that. But I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I think having a site plan that shows the conservation restriction, shows the resource areas, if any, shows the area of cutting and what was removed there, and a restoration plan for all of those, for those materials to be submitted to the Conservation Commission so they can, a week before the December 2nd meeting, which is 11/25, so that on December 2nd, you guys can really jump into some of the details of that.
Yep.
It's, I think, a really nice way forward. And I don't know, Mr. O'Reilly, are you, I can't tell if it's a noise from your phone or if you would like to speak.
I'd like to speak. I'm relatively, I just want to echo, David's comments that I'm like relatively certain that it is not, a wetland situation here, but, I will, get the plan, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of what was taken out, there's woods to the left of that path and right, and I'm assuming that, it would just, that's what was there prior to. So our plan would be to draw that up with an engineer and have a plan presented to the board, and I'll work with David on that.
Okay. I think that's the process we're talking about here. Do the site plan, delineate any impacted wetland areas, identify what was removed. That's not so hard because the stumps are still there, and you're right that much of the contiguous vegetation is likely to be the same if it's not trees, and a restoration plan for how it's going to be restored.
Chairman Williams, I just had a question. How do I remove the equipment and material? I mean, I guess due to my error, the egg, the yolk is out of the egg here.
Yeah.
Can I use the path to remove the equipment and material or not?
What equipment is being?
Well, I have a small bobcat that was moving things around. I have to get it off my property.
Yes, you can get it off in the most efficient way you can.
Right. And then, because it's not going to do anything different, and then I'll work with Mr. Clark on the plan.
Right, but let me say that going forward, since you are still at the beginning of a construction project, I assume, to build a pool and a terrace, that once the equipment and everything's been removed from the violation area, that it be fenced off so that it's not used as access going forward, and that access will
yes,
be
I'm
house.
Yeah, I'm about 80% done with the project.
Okay.
That's in my area. Okay.
So I just want to be clear though that, the equipment and the stockpiling of material not allowed in that 100-foot conservation restriction. So that either has to be removed very soon, or it has to be moved outside of the CR.
Right.
It's already been done. That there's nothing in that 100-foot. There's zero there right now. Zero.
All right.
Okay. So is there a motion then to continue to December 2nd?
December 2nd work session.
Bob Rawls moved to continue to the December 2nd work session.
Okay.
Kits, second.
Roll call vote to continue this 41 Frostfish Hill to December 2nd. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Kits.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. All right, Mr. O'Reilly, we'll see you on December 2nd, hopefully with everything in hand by November 25th, and see what the path forward looks like then.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
Thank you.
Yes.
I would just note for our own purposes that sections 3A and B of the land restriction would certainly appear to give the commission authority, if necessary, to make sure that non-native species were not used in any site activity.
Great.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a discussion. The Conservation Commission will discuss revisions to the administrative review application and policy.
Did everybody have a chance to review? Callie put into the Dropbox a redlined copy of the current policy and what is proposed to change there.
Yes.
Does anyone have questions?
I thought it was a nice job.
It basically allows the agent to make the determination for whether or not a project, is approved under an AR, and there's certain stipulations that are very much in line with the the previous policy. It's just, it gives the agent the discretion of being able to approve it or not in the field. And then it gives the applicant a way to appeal that decision by filing an RDA, which goes to the commission, which has pretty much always been the process since back in, I think, 2005. It's just over the years, since 2005, it's gotten a little bit funky in how these ARs are handled. And so this is just a way to clarify that.
Yep. Any questions or requested clarifications? Is there a motion to approve the amendment? Revision, I guess. Let me make it properly. Is there a motion to approve the revision to the policy and procedures for administrative review of projects as proposed by the conservation agent?
Bob Rawls, so moved.
There you go. Okay.
Kits, second.
All right, motion to approve the revised policy. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Kits.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Holmes. Get a chance, Ron, to dive into this policy and get to know it. It'll be your friend.
And grandchildren.
I'm going to abstain. I was under the understanding that I was being given paper copies of everything I needed for the meeting. And so I did not go into Dropbox to retrieve this. I didn't even realize I was supposed to.
Okay.
So I know nothing about it. I'm going to abstain.
That's totally fine. So I vote aye, so 5-0-1 vote to approve it. All right. That's the end of the agenda.
Yes.
A little bit longer than I thought, but
yeah, me too.
there were a couple of places that took a little bit longer. Motion to adjourn?
Bob Rawls, motion to adjourn.
Kits, second.
Roll call vote to adjourn. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Kits.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark. That was very enthusiastic, Bob. I liked it. Tom, is that an aye from you?
Aye.
Yeah. Holmes?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We are adjourned. Mark, you can stop.
Hallelujah.